Okay, so as I told you, I'm not Norbert Spahn. Norbert Spahn is the man next to me with the black hat. And to make it even more complicated, he's not a photographer. So you will ask, why is he here? Because he does photography. But the way what he does is so weird, I cannot even explain. He has kind of a cabin high up in the mountain and catches
snow crystals.
Get it? And at the end of the whole procedure, which he does since many, many years, he has collected the largest, the most valuable and most scientific collection of
snow crystals.
Wonderful. Norbert, it's your floor, the snow crystal floor.
Thank you, Lois. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here as a glaciologist from Innsbruck. And 20 years ago, I was high up in the mountains doing some exploration on the glaciers and so on. And suddenly, there was one day, I bought a little microscope, and I've seen some snow crystals, single snow crystals under the microscope. And I was so fascinated and so fall in obsession, then I decided to catch more of these crystals and try to photograph them. And then I've seen my lucky position. I'm living higher up with my wife, standing here. Hello, Suzanne. And with my 3 kids in Tyrol, that's the western part of Austria, living high up at 1100 meters above sea level. That means we have still winter there, from October to April, approximately. And there's a big chance always to catch some crystals. And the difference between a snow crystal and a snowflake, we only have 5 or 6 times throughout the year where we have the chance to get the snow crystals. Because normally a snowflake is a cluster of glued snow crystals. And that's not very easy to photograph, because I'll need a single crystal that it's laying down on my cold plate so that I can photograph it. I have not the time to do focus stacking, some of you know what it is, because the crystal is gone away within a minute. And it's not melting if it's cold, but it's gone away. On the edge of the crystal, the molecules are sublimating. I have only 1 or 2 minutes to catch the snowflake, to get it sharp and to photograph it. And normally, if you see these crystals, maybe you have skiing for sometimes in Austria, hopefully, and sometimes on the black gloves you see single snow crystals. They're very tiny, from let's say 0.1 to 4 millimeters. And what I've seen in the background here, this large one is about a diameter of 2 millimeters. So I need let's say a magnifying glass. It's more than a macro lens. I have to magnify it up to 10, 20 times to see it and to photograph it. Then it's tricky to get it sharp also. So I started 20 years ago, and the obsession and the passion was so, it's kind of a trap. Once you're in a trap, you have no chance to get out. I want to see more and more and more of the crystals. They look very similar, but within the last 20 years, I didn't found 2 flakes alike. No chance. And you've seen, they look the same. They always have 6 branches. It's only possible to get 6 branches because of this HO2 molecule. There is only one little molecule that can grow in the clouds with so different many shapes. And that's the thing what me fascinating. So fascinating. And the colors, what you see, there's a reason for these colors. Normally, if you catch a snow crystal or a snowflake, it's only transparent without a big shape or without, let's say, structure on it. So I decided to illuminate. In photographing, everything is light, light, light. I illuminate the flake from 2 different angles to get the shape and the 3-dimensional structure of these single snow crystals. And my big dream was, throughout the last 2 decades, to collect as much crystals as possible, because they are growing in the cloud. And there are only 4 stages in the cloud. Between 0 and -3, we get these very famous dendrites, 6 branches, and a little bit droplets on this, let's say, wet snow. From -3 to -10, then suddenly change something in the clouds. We didn't know exactly why it is. And then we only get needles and plates. And then below -10, suddenly the powder snow appears. You all know that. It's the best snow for skiing. And I like as a skier also. So in the cloud, the temperature has to be up by approximately -15. That's the best snow. And suddenly, below -22, we get plates again, but very small plates, like a 6-cornered plate. Suddenly you can see in the sky in summer or winter time, you see a halo sometimes around the sun, and these are these small plates. They are very seldom, and it's not so cold in the cloud as here in Austria. It's not so cold like in Canada or somewhere else places or in the Arctic. So I decided to wait, to collect over 20 years, to wait if the temperature is right. And now I have an archive of about, let's say, over more than 1,000 single crystals. And my dream is already fulfilled. You can see it on this very dark plate on the back. Now my dream is fulfilled. I have a snow crystal thermometer where I collected all these 4 stages what you can get in the cloud. And I'm still fascinated about all these crystals. I'm doing all my work, and hopefully when you go out, when you go for skiing or a winter walk, please have a look to these little tiny things. And at the moment we all have these wonderful smartphones with a macro function. Try to get in, try to explore this little tiny world, as I call it, these jewels of the sky. And I'm still fascinated. Maybe or hopefully I can get you some little passion to see that again, or to explore this wonderful world, this tiny world. And these tiny crystals grow sometimes to a snowpack. The snowpack grows up to a glacier, and the glaciers on this world will shape our planet. So they are very tiny, but very, very powerful. That's it from my point of view. Thank you very much.
So I guess it's clear why we have the exhibition here, not in La Gacilly. They have no idea about snow there. I mean, Cyril, we could never do this there because you need a real background. So, and now we go to the Kurpark. Thank you, Michael. I would like to add one more important thing. Last night we took it upon us on behalf of the photographers present in this festival and the topics to try to bring it more to the center of attention of society. And this works here. They kind of are the grassroots to it. This is where it all stems from. Talent is not falling from the sky. It comes from below. It comes from bottom up. It has to grow. And somewhere you do have to start. And therefore, I think it's a really good idea to have this young talent category. And hopefully, we will see great works to come. And it's I don't know if you mentioned it, but I did not hear it. It's together with another brand, the largest photo competition in the world. You expect this year about 700,000 entrants, which is an incredible number. And therefore, the thought that we're talking about grassroots is not a wrong one. It's really kind of a movement into photography and use this beautiful medium to express themselves and, of course, share with us opinions about the world, which fits exactly to the topic of the festival here, because we are dealing about the world. I mentioned it yesterday. All other festivals I know, they are much more curated. They, depending on the director of the festival, you have a different program. Our festival, and this is why I'm so thankful to have this collaboration with La Gacilly, is based on a manifesto. So there is moral behind it. There is integrity behind it. This is not just the idea of some creative head. It's much more. It goes much deeper, and that roots in the considerations of the founder of Jacques Roger, and of course Cyril Drouet. Please welcome here. He is the mastermind in La Gacilly, and he puts it all together and sends a message to the world of scale. No, it matters. Cyril, yesterday I was asked from a journalist about the impact. I said, okay, we have 300,000 visitors roughly in La Gacilly. We have 300,000 visitors here, roughly. So imagine that each visitor takes 5 to 50 candidates throughout, maybe posts 10. So multiply 600,000 by 10, you're 6 million. And then let's assume that another 10 people view each of these images. And I think that we talk about low numbers, then we're talking about 60 million people. And this is impact. And because people share their opinion with others, and that carries these messages to the world. And what we saw last night, this was so heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time to see what's possible with the means of photography. It's a powerful tool to change the world. And I quoted Cyril last night with one of chapters, his foreword. We need to push the gray, what came into the 21st century in our daily life, out of our life, and make it shine by the colors like in photography. Thank you, Cyril, for being here. Ulla wanted to say something which is dangerous. She is at least as talkative as Michael and me.
I can't add anything to your beautiful words, but I just wanted to make sure that we make CEWE pay. So we are probably 150 people here, and everybody is a photographer who wants to share their stories, their images, their moments with people. So please, you can send in up to 100 images. So please, everybody should send in 100 images. If I'm not wrong with my math, it would make 1,500 euro for the good of the children. So please send in your work.
It doesn't have to be your best work. Just send anything. It's about the money.
And
it's about the money. It's not about the quality.
But
in this case.
But make sure that there are also some shots in it, because we as the jury, we met yesterday and we talked about what would we like to see in the winning images. And we all came up with one word: surprise. So think what surprises us. And maybe if you send in with a CEWE award, maybe you'll be the winner, and maybe this will be a surprising step to your career and you will be exhibited here. So thank you.
This would be a surprise if I would be the winner at CEWE Photo Award. Believe me, I would be really surprised. So thank you for listening to this. If there are no more words, then we continue through the city. And yes, there's not much shadow in the street down there. Let's meet at EONVISION and have a look from the orbit to the human footprint of the world. Sylvia is guiding you.
And thank you to be so patient. Here in the shadow, it's maybe not such a problem. We are such a big group. This weekend, the biggest we had in 7 years. We are very pleased about that. But please, when we go on, try to be the group. We see here one photo of an exhibition which will go on in this street, in the Beethoven Street. By the way, this house is the Beethoven house, because Beethoven worked a lot in Baden on his music. And we will describe the exhibition here in front of this biggest photo of the exhibition, and then you have the time when we go through the Beethoven Street to look at the other photos. You see here a very special form of photography. It's photography from the orbit, done by a very special company called EONVISION, which was made 15 years ago in Salzburg to deal with such photography. The founders are Markus Eisl, who is here now with us. Please welcome him with a short applause. And Gerald Mansberger are the founders of the company. I said already, it's photography from the orbit. They get files from the NASA, the ESA, companies, like institutions like this, and they have to select and work on these files to get very sophisticated, picturesque motifs. You will see from different countries, different environment objects in the exhibition. Why do we show this year, this exhibition? Because it demonstrates very well the footprint of mankind on Earth. What's changed, what's going on, what's going bad, or what's better. The specific method to generate the photos will now explain the photographer, of course.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you for your kind introduction, and thanks to Lois and to you and to your team for your support and for the possibility to show our imagery here. For us, it's a very special place to show our imagery, which we have a few books where we present our imagery as well, and we had some exhibitions more in the Natural History Museum, for instance, and in the natural history museums and in science centers. So this is more our background. We come from science, from technology, because satellite imagery is, of course, not only the imagery, but there is a lot of information contained in it, and this is used in a huge number of applications, from nature conservation, where we are busy, to humanitarian demining, for instance, where we create maps where we show what is the land use of a special area, and could this area be mined or not. So it's a very wide scope of applications. Just a few words on the technology that's behind it. I think Lois likes extremes. So we've been in the first part of the exhibition. We saw the snowflakes, so the snow crystals, which is where you really have to be very near to the object. So the object size was, as far as I remember, a few parts of a millimeter, and this is the opposite of it. We are very distant from the object of our photos. Our satellites typically are in orbits in heights of about 600 kilometers. And if you look at these images, and imagine that these images have been taken from 600 kilometers distance, you can imagine that the quality of the lenses must be quite good. We have ground resolutions of 30 centimeters in the meanwhile, and we expect to get data with 10 centimeters ground resolutions in the next 2 years about. So this is very near to aerial photography, where you are only about 3 kilometers height. But technology is one thing. As I said, we come from the scientific and technological part of remote sensing, and what I started in this field about 30 years ago, and what I liked from the very beginning is this aesthetically component of the work. You can see such a wealth of colors and forms our Earth shows, and the very interesting thing is you can always have a history, a story behind the images. It's not only the images, it's not only the formal things, but it's really stories which have to do with people. And I would like to start with this image you see here behind me. This is a satellite image from Chittagong in Bangladesh, and what is happening there. You see a lot of vessels, ships that seem to be a bit rusty, and this is a cemetery for these ships. Ships which are not used anymore are brought there and are how to say, they are deconstructed there. So there are a lot of people working there, and it's a very dangerous work. Of course, they are partly working there without shoes, without helmets, very poor people who are doing this work, and it's a very dangerous work where they have lots of casualties because there are almost no security measures. And of course you don't see this, you don't see the people, and this is a general aspect of our imagery. You won't see the people, or you will see people in the best case as dots. You will see an image of Mecca in the Beethovengasse then, where you see a lot of small dots walking around the Kaaba in Mecca. And of course it's not possible to identify individuals, but you see that there are people. And this is perhaps also a thing that must be mentioned when you have seen thrillers and so on, where you use satellites to recognize people or to read the number plates of cars. This is not possible. They were too far apart. But you see, on the one hand, the not as individuals, but as a group. And on the other hand, you see, of course, the traces these people leave behind. And this is, I think this is a very spectacular trace people, how to say, leave in the environment. And you will see other examples where we have on one hand this negative impact of man, where he really destroys the environment. And not the environment, but the world he is living in, because I think this is also one thing satellite images show perfectly, that man is always part of his environment. He's not something separate, but he's part of this environment, part of nature, and of course he has the responsibility to keep this in a status that it can be livable. But we see also beneath these negative examples, we see also man is on the way to realize that it cannot go on in this way. We have to change things. We have to find other ways to generate the energy we need. And you will see examples, for instance, of a large solar energy plant. And of course, also these are things that leave their traces in the environment. And as I said, we as humans are part of the system, part of nature, and we have to care for it. And I would, again, thank you for the opportunity to show a few of the examples, and wish you an interesting walk through the exhibition there. Thank you so much.
So we go now. You can go slowly now through the street with the exhibition, and then we go. We cross the Golden Column. We go to the next exhibition. Okay.
There's one small thing I would like to add. We had yesterday the brilliant talk about all the videos of Amazons. And gold mining in the Amazon basin. And you will see one example which shows exactly this. The situation gold miners at the Rio Madre de Dios in Peru, which is a part of the Amazon basin. You see what these activities do with the environment there, how they change the forest and so on. Yeah, you will see it. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thanks to Lois and Sylvia and the Magic team for this important festival, and also for giving me the opportunity to be here with you. I'm so happy. So, usually I don't speak too much also in Italian. Yeah? So you can imagine in English.
What do you think? I take it.
So, I'm not profit like you, Lois. Allora, usually I don't speak much in Italian, so you can imagine in English. So, that's why I photograph. I photograph because I believe his image can communicate much more than words, and in any language. Even if the last time I'm looking around me, and I ask myself more and more often, we will be able in 1,000 seconds or less to explain to the humanity things they don't want to understand, or they don't understand for thousands of years. Or we just live in the illusion. We can do this. Well, yesterday, after having seen Lois' enthusiasm, the power for Lois, after having seen the project and the picture of some of you, I believe that we can do. We are no Obama, but we can do, I think. In this case, the photo from Salzburg Festival doesn't help too much, but maybe it helps to us to distract to have free time for a little bit. The rest, you can, I was shooting, what I was thinking, you can read in my book. I was writing this. So, danke vielmals. Lois, is a really great, maybe you, no.
Okay, this will do fine. So that's another last resort picture. This is my series about dancing. This is in Manchester, a Sikh party. This is a very early picture from black and white period. This is Crimsworth Methodist Chapel, a wedding. And then round here we have a picture of the Gothic festival in Whitby. And this is a dance, and the men take off their tops and go completely crazy, which suited me very well. And then behind you, right behind you, we have some pictures from the black and white series from Hebden Bridge. That's a Lee Dam swim, where they go swimming on New Year's Day. And next to it is a chapel picture. You see there's 2 layers there. And then a man cleaning the window. I think that's really a brief tour. Have I been too long? Is there any questions? Let me take a picture of this lot. This is great. There you go. Thank you. Any questions? Right. There are no questions. Oh, right. Okay. Far away. Where's the question? Oh, there's no questions. No time for questions. Okay. No, I understand. Well, I do like ice cream, of course. In fact, I hope to treat myself with an ice cream after this. I think I deserve it. Yes? Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
I begin for one. So, hello. Florence and I promise to speak to you briefly, okay?
Hi. So here we are in a very special project we like very much and we want to support and to talk about. We have a program that schools, students, school students learn about, have a project about photography. And they are exhibited at the same time of the photo festival with the most important professional photographers, and they are also in the catalogue. So they are treated like the same level as the great photographers. 16 class from Brittany in France are working on a topic, on a subject each year. And the Austrian Niederösterreich class, also managed by Christian, are working on the same theme, and they are exhibited together. So, Christian, you're... Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, I have the honor to organization and work on the Schulprojekt in Austria for 7 years now. Every year is an example to see how the students deal with the topic they are given. Our job is helping the students to realize their ideas, photography. It's exciting, interesting, and for me is so important to find out how the young people think. I would like to thank all the photographers who take the part and they are enthusiastic about the project. Our reward is shining eyes and a smile on the young people's face. Thanks. For our exhibition. This exhibition is not a story, but the work of the photographers from Lower Austria on the topic that Lois has given. The Gerald organization a competition and the jury of 10 people select the photographs. Thank you, Lois, for the great cooperation between the festival and the guild. Thank you for listening.
So this is a good opportunity for Ina to speak to you because you are not speaking, because you're chewing. Ina is a dancer, a world-class dancer. She has won 3 times the world championship in what kind of dancing?
A formation dancing.
I ask you to picture the photographers at that time in their respective exhibitions, and you see the results around you. Ina, please tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. Ja? Hier? Hallo? Liebe Silvia, lieber Lois, es ist für mich eine ganz besondere Ehre, dass ich das La Gacilly-Baden Photo Festival im vergangenen Jahr fotografisch begleiten durfte. Die Arbeit mit den Bildern und den kreativen Köpfen, die hinter diesen Werken stehen, hat mir ermöglicht, eine völlig neue, tiefe Verbindung zu den Motiven aufzubauen. Dabei wurde mir erneut bewusst, wie bedeutsam euer Beitrag für unsere Gesellschaft ist. Was ihr hier mit La Gacilly erschafft, ist weit mehr als nur eine Ausstellung. Es ist ein kraftvoller Raum, in dem sich Menschen auf eine fast magische Weise mit den drängenden Themen unserer Zeit auseinandersetzen können. Durch eure Arbeit gelingt es, dass sich die Besucher, ob gewollt oder zufällig, den Herausforderungen unserer Welt stellen, indem sie sich von den visuellen Kraft der Bilder berühren und inspirieren lassen. Die Botschaften und Denkanstöße, die durch diese Werke vermittelt werden, sind von unschätzbarem Wert für unsere gemeinsame Zukunft. Dafür möchte ich mich von Herzen bei euch, liebe Silvia, lieber Lois, sowie dem gesamten La Gacilly-Team bedanken. Ihr leistet eine außergewöhnliche Arbeit, die uns alle zum Nachdenken anregt und hoffentlich auch zum Handeln inspiriert. Besonders stolz macht es mich, meine eigenen Bilder nun an diesem wunderbaren Ort und im Festivalkatalog zu sehen. Es erfüllt mich mit tiefer Freude, Teil dieses besonderen Projekts zu sein. Vielen, vielen Dank euch allen.
Dear friends, Austrian television did arrive. I welcome Mrs. Carici. Thank you for being with us. And they will be with us for the next roughly 3 hours. And so, in other words, behave. Behave, make a good impression. And now it's my honor, and it's so easy to introduce the man next to me. I think we could do it similar to Martin Parr. It is David Turnley. David Turnley. David Turnley. And he's not completely alone. He's a little bit with his twin brother here. And because he could not come, so he will drop a few sentences about his work or their common life path for a certain time in life as well. So, welcome, Mr. David Turnley.
Thank you so much, Lois. I want to, first of all, just thank Lois and Silvia. This festival, and to all of you, is wonderful. And I want to thank Cyril because he curated both of my exhibits. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll try to speak so that you can hear me. So, 2 nights ago, I'm sitting in my apartment in Paris where I live with my wife, who's here. Where are you? Rachel, and my daughter, Dawson. Dawson, come here for a sec, please. Because she's really the star of the show. So 2 nights ago, I'm talking to her about what should I say to this audience in La Gacilly. And she disappears into her bedroom, and she comes back with an iPad. And she has written, "Hello, my name is David Turnley. I photographed Nelson Mandela. That's all you have to know." But she's kind of right, actually. And I was thinking as we were walking along that I could sort of try to do these kinds of talks, which have been brilliant, by the way, to connect with the photographs, but it's really a little difficult. So I'm going to tell you a good story. Is that okay? And the story won't go long, but it's a story that involves also my twin brother, and I think the story may tell you a lot about who I am and who we are, and hopefully maybe why I do what I do, and a little bit my motivation. So in 1985, I was working at a newspaper in Detroit, and at that time, Detroit was incredibly segregated. There had been race riots in 1967, and the city had gone from being 50% white, 50% black, to about 90% black, 10% white. And it also coincided with the suburbanization of America, so there was this white flight that was happening. And Detroit was really the iconic city in America that was revealing the division in America. And I was very sensitive growing up in a family that was very involved in the civil rights movement. Dr. King had been my hero. And I was photographing the realities for people of color in Detroit, which had not been done previously. And it occurred to me one day in 1985, as I was following very closely what was going on in South Africa, that actually I should go to South Africa because I believed in joining the struggle against apartheid. But I also thought that if I could make photographs in South Africa that revealed the indignations and humiliations of prejudice, that people in Detroit could see this, and they might learn something about the notion of dignity, of humiliation, of dismissal of people. And the newspaper sent me. It was meant to be about a 6-week assignment. As I arrived in South Africa, the country was exploding, and every day, for what was meant to be a 6-week assignment, I was up and down the country in the middle of riots in townships all over the country. And in fact, what was meant to be a 6-week assignment turned to be many years of my life. And I was one of the last international photographers to have received a visa from the South African government, and my photographs were being distributed by Black Star all over the world to magazines around the world, and it was an incredible privilege to wake up every day and contribute to the struggle. In late 1987, it was an honor that I'm about to offer to you that won't seem like an honor. I was actually kicked out of South Africa by the white regime because my work was having too much effect around the world. And it was a kind of compliment in those days. There were 11 journalists that year that were kicked out of South Africa. I went to Paris, where I was based, to cover the world. And I couldn't go back to South Africa for the first 2 years. I was persona non grata. And in 1990 in Paris, I received a phone call. Mr. Turnley, this is the ambassador from the embassy in South Africa. I'd like to have lunch with you. And I was quite confused and, to be honest, a little bit suspicious. And I said, sure, we can have lunch. And I go to this very fancy 5-star restaurant in Paris and meet this very large ambassador from the South African embassy who sits in front of me and says, Mr. Turnley, things are about to change in our country, and we want people with your credibility to go back and cover those changes. And I frankly really was suspicious. In those years, the white regime would do anything to destroy the integrity of journalists or photojournalists whose work was having an effect. And I said to him, I will accept your visa under 2 conditions. Number 1, that the visa has no conditions. And number 2, that I pay for lunch. And the man looked at me and said, I have no idea why you want to pay for lunch, but of course. And I took a flight that night to Johannesburg. And I arrived in Johannesburg to find out the next day that Nelson Mandela was being released on November 11th in 1990, just several days later. And that's why I was being asked to return to South Africa. And this had been a dream of mine, as it had been for millions of people around the world. And my twin brother was at that time working as the photographer based in Paris for 25 years for Newsweek, and he had arrived in South Africa. And on the night before, we called Nelson Mandela Madiba. That's his tribal name, and those of us who knew him well, that was how we called him affectionately. And Madiba was meant to be released the next day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I got a very good night's sleep that night because I knew I was going to be up very early and work very late, and I wanted to be sharp, and I knew it was going to be an incredible day. And around midnight, I receive a phone call, and it's a colleague of mine from a South African photojournalist. He said, David, you know I love you, but the South African Photographers Union decided today that tomorrow's event is going to be a pool event, and there will only be 5 photographers allowed in front of the prison. And I said to my friend John, I said, John, you know that I love you and I respect you, but if you think for 1 second that I will not be in front of that prison tomorrow morning, you're crazy. And I called my brother and I said, Peter, we have a problem. We have to get out in front of that prison very early tomorrow. And we agreed, and we arrived in front of the prison. It was the prison that Mandela was held in before he was released, was a medium security prison outside of Parr, which is about 45 minutes from Cape Town. And we arrived in front of the prison, and there were 2 Afrikaner prison guards who were the people that guarded prisons in those years. And we went to these 2 guards and we said, you know what's about, we shook their hands, and with much dignity, because I always believe in that, as does my brother, I said, you have 2 choices today. You can become part of something that's going to be historically important to the entire world, or you can allow only 5 photographers to be in front of this prison on what is probably one of the most important days in the history of the world. And what we need you to do is to give us a rope, and we promise you we will create a pen for the photojournalist that is about 30 feet wide, and we will self-police ourselves so that we don't, as the argument had been that there will be decorum on this particular day, we will make sure that we behave, but the world needs to see this moment. And they agreed, and they got us a rope. And we set up our 30-foot pen, and from about 4 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, photojournalists from all over the world arrived, and before the afternoon, at 4 o'clock, when there were helicopters overhead and every television station in the world was waiting to watch Madiba walk out of prison, there were probably 250 photographers standing behind me, and I hadn't moved for probably what was 12 hours to protect my space that was about this big. And I knew that the moment that Madiba would walk out with Winnie, that I would probably have, before the crowd broke, about 3 frames to make. And this was before autofocus cameras and auto exposure cameras. And I was working with a 300-meter lens. And Winnie showed up late, as she tended to do. And Madiba walked out of prison at 4:15. And as he walked out of prison, I made 3 frames. And the crowd broke just as I expected. And fortunately, my 3 frames were in focus, and it's one of the most important photographs that I've ever made. They got in their car. There was a motorcade into Cape Town. The motorcade lasted for about 45 minutes, and I got in a car and raced behind them. And when we got to the city hall in Cape Town, there were probably more than 150,000 South Africans who had spent their entire lives waiting for Madiba to walk out of prison and to address South Africa. And when Madiba and the motorcade arrived, Nelson Mandela had not seen a crowd in 27 years. And he apparently really he asked the driver to please quickly drive him out of the city. In the meantime, I had entered the crowd, and the crowd was dangerous. It was one of those crowds I've been in crowds all over the world, and crowds, as we know, can be dangerous. This was a dangerous crowd, not because they were dangerous, but they were so excited. And I literally had to climb on the shoulders of people just to basically survive. And I effectively walked on the shoulders of the crowd to get on the balcony in front of Cape Town. Now I'm suddenly in a position where if Madiba does arrive, I'm effectively, in many respects, out of position. So I walk into the city hall, and I sort of panically race down a hallway, and I open the first door thinking that maybe I can find a window to lean out of. Well, it so happens when I open the door, standing in front of me is the reception committee that involved Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the leaders of the anti-apartheid movement, including the family of Nelson Mandela. And they all knew me, and they said, David, come in, but please be quiet. Just go to the back. And there were probably about 15 of us. And the world had no idea. The people outside had no idea. And suddenly there's a phone call. And Archbishop Tutu takes the phone. And we hear him say, Papa, you have to come. Just show your face or they'll tear the city down. You just have to at least show up. And suddenly there's silence, and he puts the phone down and he said, he's coming. And 5 minutes later, the door opens, and in walks Nelson Mandela. And I made the first photographs of Madiba. And as he walked in, everyone, the crowd didn't know he was in the room. The family was all there. Everyone's crying. And at one point, Archbishop Tutu takes a glass and he takes a fork and he sort of knocks the glass to get some silence. And he looks at Nelson Mandela, I'm going to make my daughter Nelson Mandela. And he looks at Nelson Mandela and he says, Papa, Baba, you have no idea what your life has meant to my life. And he started to cry, and everyone started to cry. And he stood there so dignified, and afterwards, and everyone else sort of said their piece. And then he said, please, you have to forgive me. I have to take care of something. And he stepped out of a window onto a balcony and spoke to the world for the first time in 27 years. That's the kind of life I've had the privilege to live, and it's the kind of dedication that one has to have to do this kind of work. And throughout all of these years that have been really 40 years, I came to Paris when I was 19 to meet Henri Cartier-Bresson and met him when I was living in a 75 franc a month studio, maid's room next to Notre Dame, selling ice cream below and studying French at the Sorbonne. And the director of photography at the New York Times had seen the work of my brothers and mine from the time we were 17 to 19, where we photographed the life on a very disadvantaged street in our industrial hometown in Indiana. And I had taken this work to Magnum, and the director of Magnum saw the work and said, my God, you guys can do this work. Let me make a few calls. And she calls Gene Smith, and she calls Bruce Davidson, and she calls the director of photography at the Museum of Modern Art and the director of photography at the New York Times, who had been the director of Magnum, and she sends me around, and they all said the same thing. They said, look, you guys can do this. This is a world that is very competitive, and no one will ever hold your hands, but get out there and do this because you have what it takes. And we've sort of never looked back. And all of these years I've lived in Paris, and I go home to Paris, and I share this story. Paris is a place where the great photojournalists of our time have lived. Why? Because French know how to get places fast. They grow up in a culture where people travel in August. They go visit countries. It's a country where the mentality is very versatile to get to know the world. And as such, it's a country, and Paris being very centrally located has always been the place where photojournalists go to work for agencies that quickly respond to the most important world events in the world. And Peter and I have both lived there really since 1975, most of our lives. And I always tell this story that the kind of people that have done the kind of work my brother and I have done, it's a very small group. It's sort of like Formula One race car drivers. There's about 20 of us who we see all the time, all over the world. It's a very competitive world. And we were 2 of those 20, and we would always see the same people. And it's an incredibly competitive world, but at night we would sit down and eat together, and we don't talk about our work, we don't talk about competition, we talk about our families. This is what the French do, and it's why I've always loved living in France. And then you go back to work the next morning. But that moment has always been really special. And there's a time when you're just tired. You've been in a location in a war zone for a month, and you just hit a wall, and it's like, okay, I can't do this, I have to go home. And you would look at and I'll say this in French to Cyril, as if Cyril is one of my French colleagues. I would go to my colleague and say, putain, Cyril, je rentre sur Paname. And everyone knows what that means. It means, my God, I have to go home, and I'm going home to Paris. And that everyone knows what that means. You're going home to softness, you're going home to sensuality, to beauty, to love. And that's what these pictures are that I've been doing over these last 50 years. And that's really all I'm going to offer you today. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your festival.
What a man. What a man. So what are we going to do next?
Well, we're working on this. I wake up every day. First of all, let me thank Leica. This is my mistress and has been for these last really 50 years. Thank you, Leica. I wake up, and I don't say that as a commercial. This has a soul to it. And when I wake up in the morning, put this around my neck, and I have never walked out of my house without this around my neck. because there's something that can happen around every corner. Edward Bouba used to say, David, je vais le dire en français après je traduis. David, quand tu te lèves le matin et tu pars, amène ton boîtier avec un peu de noir là-dedans. Et quand tu promènes pas comme ça. Garde la tête comme ça, parce que si tu fais ça, tu risques de voir un cadeau autour de chaque coin. So what he was saying was, David, when you wake up in the morning, put a little black and white in your camera. And when you walk outside, don't walk like this. Walk with your eyes like this. Because if you do, you risk to see a gift around every corner. And that's the way I feel with this. And it allows me to work very intimately. And the way I work, I want to implicate myself always. I want you to feel me and I want to feel you. And I have to win your confidence and work with you. It's a collaboration all the time. And this allows me to do that. Yeah. So thank you, Andreas Kaufmann and Karin Kaufmann and Leica.
And just to add, when you speak with him, I remember when we were in the coffee, he was with the Leica, and I speak to him to explain how is the Gacilly, and every 2 minutes, sorry, and he showed me a picture of me.
J'adore photographier. I love photography because he has what I always call la lumière dans les yeux. He has the light in his eyes, as Lois does, as so many of you have.
Really?
And for me, I wanted to say one more thing. What's important for me with this, and I learned this when I was very young. My father, I was very gifted. When we woke up in the morning, my father was an orthodontist. He had been a great athlete. My mother was a concert pianist. So there was always music and movement in my life. But there was something else. When we woke up in the morning, my father would get ready to leave. And before he left, he would turn around and he would look at us and he would say 3 things. First of all, today, stay low, which meant be in the game. Secondly, hit them harder than they hit you, which didn't literally mean that. It meant whatever you do it with the most passion you can find. And then the last thing he would say is, and have fun. And when he came home at night, he would come up to our bedroom and he'd say, how'd you have fun today? Now, why do I tell you that? Because for me, photography is about vitality. Vitality is the range of life. It's not just great life. It's also the difficult life. But it's exactly the opposite of indifference. It's caring. And that's what I try to photograph. So.
I would like to share with you how David has fun. He was here about a month ago for an artist talk upon the invitation of Christian and the Lower Austrian Photographer Society, and I picked him up at the hotel and said, come, I'll show you your exhibition. And we drove over here, and we spent here roughly an hour, but I'm not sure if he has seen his own exhibition at that point, because he was constantly photographing people who were watching the exhibition and asking for the name to punch into his cell phone and the age of the daughter in the cabbage and the car and all these kind of things. So he's a very, very special character with a camera. Very special.
And I have had the privilege, so I'm 69 years old. And I came to Paris in 75, and I met Henri Cartier-Bresson and his wife Martine Fonck at their house, at their apartment. And they were very important to me. And in the same year, I became very, very close friends with André Kertész and his wife Elizabeth, and Marc Ribou and Joseph Koudelka. My brother was Robert Doisneau's assistant. So I have had the privilege to know the real humanist photographers in the history of photography. So everything I'm sharing with you has also been imparted to me by these people, and I'm forever grateful, so thank you. And Lois has this, look at this festival that he and Sylvia have done with Joanna, who's so great, who I think she's always getting me cabs and everything, and it's all so perfect. But this is what they have put together, and I've been listening to all these presentations. Last night was very special. And yes, to be around people that care about something, wow, it doesn't get better than that.
Thank you, my dear friends. And was on his knees looking for flaws, for mistakes. And the reason why he was looking for mistakes, because he wants to have something absolutely perfect. So, Cássio, I don't know, we make it now condition. Cássio Vasconcellos. It's more difficult. Vasconcellos, 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 Vasconcellos.
Hello, everybody. Well, I just tell a little bit about this work. I stayed during the pandemic doing that. It was good for my mind because I stayed about 1 year, 3 months working every day in this image. What I did here is I put together thousand different pictures, aerial pictures that I did on helicopter, many flights over some cars, cemetery, metal scrap yards, and this kind of place that we leave the things. And the idea, it's why it's so big. It's so big because this is a huge problem, because our problem is so big. It's so big, the amount of things we produce and then we let. Sure that we can recycle, but recycle is not easy also. We need space, we need a lot of energy, money, people working on it. So to digest all of these, the things we produce, it takes time, and sometimes it's not possible. And what I did here is I put together many different places that are spread around some cities. I did mostly of them in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, but it could be in any place in the world. It's exactly the same what is happening in any place. I did something in the United States also, but the amount of things is so incredible, but we don't perceive, we don't realize, because all of these places is still far from us, in far places and hidden by walls. So sometimes we are on the road, we don't realize that under or behind some walls we have this kind of yards. So I put all of these together to give this dimension. The idea is to be very impressive. I think the taxi wants to come to throw away. Well, that's it. So I know you maybe are asking why I did in helicopter and not with drone, because all of these spaces are far, so it was a very huge area. What I can do in 2 hours flying a helicopter, I would need at least 2 weeks doing with drone. And all of these places sometimes is very difficult to go there by car or anyway. So this is the reason also I did in helicopter, because it's a very powerful machine and it's possible to do all of it. And I don't repeat the things, the airplanes, the boats. They are different all the time. All different. I don't repeat. The trains, everything. Well, that's it. What is Lois?
It's not far. Unfortunately, Pascal had to leave this morning. I know him since 1985, and there's one sentence he really coined to me. He said, "Lois, I'm coming, but if there's a job, I go. I go, no matter what it is." So, of course, he called me last Thursday that there's a job. I say, "Pascal, you cannot do that to me. We love to have you here." I say, "Well, I'm coming anyway." I didn't say that I'm not coming, but I have to go. Say, "What do you mean?" So, okay, I come, but then on Sunday morning at 6:20, I take the Air France machine back to Paris, go to my apartment, take a shower, pack my bags, and fly to Congo. No, we move up there, yeah. And fly to Congo. This is what he is about. He's on his way to Congo tonight. And this is how the life of photographers is. The same like David Dubilay. They have been in the Philippines last Thursday. They still have been in the Philippines, flew to New York, went to their home, changed, took a shower, flew into Vienna, and yesterday they did fly, this morning they fly back to Canada. This is what photographers do. And because Pascal is not here, we go for a little shadow. Martin, I think we move further, but there's a little bit more shadow. We deserve shadow, I guess. Martin, is it okay? I take the cable. So, where to start? We have two focus points in this festival. We spoke about them yesterday. It's about the oceans, and it's about Amazonia/Pantanal. But there's also a third focus point, and the third focus point is about urbanization. And urbanization is a crying, loud problem. We are 9 billion soon. Yeah, let's stay here. We are 9 billion soon, and by 2050, 2/3 of this 9 billion will live in cities. Imagine Vienna has 2 million. Paris has, how many has Paris? 12, 14? Paris, they inhabit the population of Paris?
Inside Paris, it's around 2.5 million. But with the the big area is around 15 millions.
I learned something. Vienna is as big as Paris. Wow, thank you. You're a really nice man. Yeah, also in Vienna they are also all inside. Believe me, they are all inside. Well, Pascal met. Maybe you join me on that because we both are very close with him. Pascal, it always goes in waves because we are not constantly spending time together, but I know him since 1985. This is a long, long time. And I met him at the Geo magazine in Hamburg, Geo, as French say, or English say, Geo magazine. And when I walked in there, it was always on the door, a ranking of who's there. And I saw my name, of course, first, because of course you're aware about your own name, but it was there also Pascal met, and his name starts with an M. So it was past my name. So I thought, shit, he's here, and I'm allowed in. This was already then. And after that, we became something what Gio always called workhorses. There was a third photographer, which was also called a workhorse. The three of us did get a lot of assignments because they nicknamed us, we are banks. At the time when banks have not been so corrupt and so in difficult situations, people relied on banks, and they consider us that we are so reliable like a bank. And we did prove it, by the way. We did prove it. So in the editorial sense, it was meant the way they could send us wherever they wanted, and we would bring home a story. This was key because it was expensive, and at the time, photographers have been paid a good way. And since then, Pascal is my friend, my companion, he's on my side over the last decades. And he also played a substantial role how La Gacilly came to Baden. Because at the time he was friend with Jacques Rocher, of course with you, Cyril, and me. And it happened that we met in Perpignan the first time, a really important photo festival, and we have been introduced to each other, and then the story unfolded, and at the end we had a decision that we share this festival and show it on two places in the west of Europe and in the east of Europe. And I think this is now a real success story. It's now 7 years that we do it, and we really make a powerful impression. So Pascal always takes on difficult stories. He would call himself an impact photographer. That means he goes where it hurts. In these places it's not so hurtful as it could be from his point of view, because hurt means that there's real conflict or just the aftermath of immediate conflict. In this case it's more about a reflection. And I think the creation of this story has a lot to do with you, because you kind of created it together by discussing about it. And it's in part new material, in part also archival material. You cannot assign a story of that size. It goes on over there. It's a lot of material. And it's really also very important how they pick the places in the world to showcase what is meant. And it's not by chance that we stop here, because La Rinconada is a very small place in comparison to other mega cities. It's 50,000 then when it was photographed, and has now maybe 100,000, but it's a place 5,000 meters above sea level.
The highest city in the world. Yes, it is the highest city in the world. And it's true that I remember when we decided to make this exhibit with Pascal, it's because among all his reports in the world, 40 years of work, and he traveled a lot in the cities, and this idea was about the cities, because the cities, that's the fact, are the future of the humanity. We know that in 2050, around 70% of the humanity, of the people, will live in the cities. It means in 2050, around 7 billion of people in the cities. And what was crazy is that he was in the major city in Africa with Cairo, in the highest city in the world with La Icona, and he traveled a lot. You know, you have in Memphis, you have United States, Agadez, everywhere. And I remember when we just arrived, it was for me this picture that you saw about in Madagascar. You know, it's complete for me. It's exactly the spirit of this magical color of Pascal, because he's a man who is working in color. You have Salgado in black and white, and you have Pascal in color. And it's crazy, you know. There is no. He doesn't work on his pictures after work. You know, all the light that you have are the natural light he utilized. There is no traffic on his images, and he's really a fantastic photojournalist. For my magazine, the Figaro magazine, maybe we produced with Pascal around 6 stories each year, and he belongs to this family of photographers. You are a total confidence with him. He goes, and you know that when he will come back, when he will come back, you have the story. And the complete story. He knows exactly what to do and how to work. You don't have to make a speech with him before the work, before the report, to say maybe. No. It takes just 5 minutes with him. 5 minutes to explain. There is this story. What do you want to make it? It's enough. He goes and he comes back, and you have this quality. He's really a good guy.
Before we move on, I would like to refer to this image, because at the first sight you will not think so much about what it has to do with a city, but this image tells you a lot about the quality of people in the third world. It's about organization, because each bag has to be unloaded. Each bag has an owner. So there's a structure, and also how they balance the weight so that the truck is able to pull it, so that the truck is not turning over in the first bend. And also, it was not in the picture at the end when it takes off. There will be maybe another 50 people on top of it sitting, and they arrive in most cases. And for me, this is an example what we underestimate in our developed world, the capability of people where we kind of think, okay, there's another picture here, and we have made a really large one about just what is the name? And Gerüst, scaffolding. It's a scaffold made out of bamboo. First I thought, we need to have something special. Of course, first you think about maybe something very telling, but when I saw how it looked when we made a mock-up, then it's so delicate. Bamboo is small like a finger, and it goes up really high. And the people who build it and work on it, they are not wanting to die. They want to come home with their families and have food and so on. So it's a construction knowledge we do not participate on. So I think we are underestimate people in this part of the world, what capabilities they have, and therefore I'm more optimistic about how they can organize third world huge cities than maybe we. We are not ready. We need room, we need architecture, we need all the planning, but they have intuition. There's a lot of creativity behind, a lot of empathy as well, and of course it's always a struggle because it's always on the edge and on the brink of survival. And that makes you go, that makes you fight. And this is the quality what I really see in these examples. Thank you. So, we're in the next garden in the Gutenbrunner Park, which I like the most of all of the parks here because it's so contained. We have 4 exhibitions here, and the first one is of Sasha Goldberger. Goldberger is French. Goldberger is French, of course, but he cannot be here now, and we did think long and hard about how to replace him. And because his story is about, do we have a chance for planet B? Is there outer space? What's going on? What's about the people who have been already on our planet, landed in Roswell or did not, or whatever? So we needed expertise, of course. The expertise stands next to me. His name is Christian Köbel. He's, of course, a professor. He works in the field of impact research. That means he looks to the origin of the universe, where all the meteorites are coming from. So if you are insecure about the future, ask him, he will know if you will be hit. Secondly, for 2 terms, he was the director of the Natural History Museum in Vienna, and we made great exhibitions together. Notably, one with Michael Nichols, a huge one, a really huge one, and some others. And Pascal met, of course, yes. And, well, he works with NASA. His wife is also the reason to go many times to Houston. He comes from Houston. Welcome to her as well. Where is she? It's over there. Hello, Donna. And from personal reasons and from professional reasons, he goes in and out with NASA. So get ready to know about reality. Welcome, Mr. Christian Köbel, Mr. Professor Christian Köbel.
Well, thank you, Lois, for the invitation. I was asked to put a little bit of scientific background to the nice images of aliens here. And without taking, I think, too much surprise away, I would already come to the conclusion that the aliens probably don't look like pasta sieves that are flying around in space or anywhere else, and that these photographs are fantastic and great, but may not have much bearing on reality of aliens, if there are any. And I'm saying that with a little bit of trepidation, because we can't be sure if there are any or not. But we can put a little bit of reality spin on the topic. And I would like to start, actually, since these images here have a very cinematographic quality, so they remind me of various films, not necessarily always Hollywood ones, but some interesting science fiction films. And there is one by Andrei Tarkovsky, 1972, Solaris, which is one of my favorite films altogether. And in that film, it's not much science fiction as such as a lot of philosophy. And there's a discussion between people on a space station. And one of them says, talking about finding some alien kind of intelligence or aliens in general, he says, we're not looking for other intelligences and other civilizations. We're just looking for a mirror. And I think that is something that has influenced our thinking for a lot of decades about the possibility of aliens. We're looking for mirrors. We're looking for ourselves in outer space. This is why the aliens usually are depicted with 2 arms and 2 legs and a head and so on and so forth. Just go back in Earth history a few million or a few 100 million years, and you'll find creatures that look totally different. In fact, going back in Earth history, the Earth is 4.5 billion years old currently. Humans have been around maybe for a few 100,000 years. Multicellular organisms, and that includes anything from plants to frogs to snails and whatever, and they all look very different, have been around for a few 100 million years. Why is that? If we would go back in time, if we had the chance to go back in time, a few 100 million years, for example, could we even live on our own planet? And the answer is absolutely not. We humans could not live at a time maybe 400 or 500 million years ago on our own planet, at which time our planet was already 4 billion years old. Why not? For example, because the Earth's atmosphere has changed over the millions of years. Oxygen has only been present in a minor amount in the Earth's atmosphere briefly about 2 billion years ago, then it disappeared again, and then it started coming back again about 600-700 million years ago. So if we would go back 500 million years, we could not breathe the air on our own planet. How were the temperatures? How was the climate? Totally different, of course. Only at the time, 66 million years ago, when the dinosaurs barely still lived before an impact took them out, we had not 21% oxygen in the atmosphere, but over 30% oxygen in the atmosphere. There was no ice at the poles or anywhere else, because it was 5 degrees on average warmer than it is today back then. Jungle-like woods more or less were covering the whole planet. So our own planet has changed a lot, and if we would go back in time, we could not live on our own planet, we as humans. So that puts a little bit of a damper on the thought that aliens would be looking just like us. So the other question is, I'm digressing it just for a moment here. People always say, well, we could go to other planets, like Mars or Venus or something like that in our solar system, which are not exactly around the corner, because it would take half a year just to go to Mars. And in between, we would be subjected to a lot of radioactivity from space, cosmic radiation, solar radiation, and so on and so forth. That is like an X-ray a minute or something like that. So that's not the most healthiest environment either. But if we ever get to Mars, and I'm sorry, there's the owner of a social medium used to be called Twitter now, wants to fly to Mars. Good luck for him, but the rest of us, I would suggest we take better care of our planet and stay here, because if we'd ever get to Mars, the atmosphere is 96% carbon dioxide, and the rest is nitrogen and the argon, but no oxygen inside. So we couldn't breathe the air. Besides that, the atmospheric pressure on Mars is 1/500th of what it is on the surface of Earth. So even if there were any oxygen in Mars' atmosphere, it wouldn't be enough to breathe. We couldn't breathe there. Temperature on average on Mars is about -20 to -30 degrees Celsius, and it ranges from about 0 or plus a few degrees down to about -100. And because the atmosphere is so thin, the day and night change is drastic between something like -60 to -10 or something like that. So again, not a very pleasant place. Let's try with Venus. Venus also has an atmosphere that is 96% carbon dioxide and no oxygen inside. Can't breathe that. and it's 100 times the pressure of our atmosphere. So we would be crushed on the surface. Besides that, the greenhouse effect on the surface of Mars makes the temperature rise to about 500 degrees Celsius. Not very pleasant either. Not for a very long time. You would incinerate very fast. So in our close vicinity, there's already nothing that looks similar to the Earth, nothing where we could live. You know, are there aliens? Not in our solar system. And if there are, there might have been on Mars back 3 billion years ago, single-celled bacteria-like organisms, like they were on Earth, by the way, at that time. We have records that go back about 3.5 billion years on Earth, that single-celled organisms, similar to algae and so on, were present here. And we only have evidence in the past about 700 or 800 million years that there were multicellular organisms. So even on Earth, any higher living beings wouldn't be around for the longest time. So what we could say is if we include bacteria-like creatures, single-cell organism-like creatures, maybe there are aliens somewhere in the vicinity or have been. We haven't found them yet. They could be. It could have been something 3 billion years ago. Now, looking at other stars and other planets, let's not forget that it's quite a long ways away. And if you would fly, we had one spacecraft going to Pluto, the outermost, used to be called a planet, now it's a dwarf planet. It's about 40 times the distance of the Earth from the Sun, which is not all that far. The spacecraft was on the flight, on the way, for over 10 years to get there. Imagine how long it takes to the next stars, which are millions of times as far away. So, you know, any aliens that have advanced technology would have to have very advanced technology. And then the question is, could they break the rules of physics? Hardly, not easily. And if they get here, could we communicate? How long have we been communicating the way we are doing right now? The last 50, 100 years? When did radio waves for the first time emanate from the Earth? Maybe 100 years ago, something like that. Before that, and if you imagine how we would communicate, can you read your discs on a computer from 30 years ago or your VHS tapes anymore? No, you can't. And so if the aliens come with a technology that is only 100 years more advanced than ours, they wouldn't understand us, we wouldn't understand them. We sent out a spacecraft, the Voyager spacecraft, a while ago, that had a message to possible extraterrestrial intelligences, and it was made as a gold-plated record, similar to vinyl records. Who can read those anymore? I don't know. So we have a number of problems. We have the problems of habitability, we have the problems of communication, we have the problems of even recognizing how an alien creature, even if it's only a single-celled organism, would look like, because one thing I can tell you for sure, it would look totally different from us, and if we have any advanced creature, it will not have 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head with glowing eyes like they have in all these movies. So that's all I wanted to say here about the possibility of aliens. Unfortunately, I think the most alien we're going to get is our own people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. Nevertheless, I have a question to you. Why do we think that aliens are male? I never heard that anyone said aliens are female. And in this story here, it's of course male coming to Earth, telling the man, don't worry, we will let you live forever. You will live forever. We just make you into, we turn you into cactuses, so saguaros. It's a different lifestyle, but still life. But we're interested in the women. So I suppose that someone knows that aliens are men.
I would say that's just our own prejudice and nothing else.
That's it. Well, there are more people who know and deal with the aliens, and on the 13th October, which will be our last day of the festival, we will meet this man again, Christian Köbel, at the Cinema Paradiso, the venue you know since yesterday. We will watch a Wes Anderson movie called Asteroid City. And then we will maybe open up the thinking about what it all is about aliens a little wider. Mr. Professor Christian Köbel, thank you very much. By the way, what I didn't mention before, he's an expert on movies. He's a really expert on movies. So,
hello everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being around with us. I can't stress enough how well organized and pleasure is to be in the festival. So again, thank all the team for everything that is happening. If the photographers give half of the work I gave to Louis and Joanna, I'm sure it was a lot of work. But it's good to be here. Having this day with all of you and seeing so many talented photographers and so many nice works, it's a challenge to talk about your main ideas. There's so many interesting things. But there's another rich aspect of the festival, that we can see so many different perspectives and so many creative processes. So what we have here is it's 3 of my series, and I was thinking just this morning, what does it mean to have so different works exhibit together? And I come to realize that I'm a result of my generation. I was born in 1980. I study photography in a very chemical way inside the laboratory, developing films. But professionally, I never delivered a single job in film. I instantly moved to digital. I realized that was going to be the way. So you'll see in my work that I like the digital process. I like to play around with the possibilities, but everything is happening very fast, and there's already a new frontier, which is the artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of conversation talks about if my images are real or not. And what happens is that even they're being so visually different, they all operate kind of a similar frequency, which is a gray area where the image can be very true or can be a big lie. I like to think that photography is a tool to express your ideas, express your creativity, and that's what I try to do as best. And I like to impact viewers to generate some kind of reflection. I don't want to control the reaction. I don't want to determine exactly what the viewer will feel, but I want to start something. I want it to be a spark for whatever process this person might be going or and wants to think about. So, of course, there are a few subjects, so it's easier to connect to a situation, a cause, but mainly, like I said, what you see here is my truth. That's how I use my creativity. We talked a lot about obsession, and all photographers have some kind of obsession, and I think mine is to communicate. That's why I chose to be a photographer. I wanted to communicate. So I'll go through the series a little bit. I'll start with still life. There are the birds, and still life started with me taking my kids to the zoo, and they could never see an animal in a nice position. They were very tired, and they thought it was a really boring experience. And then we took the kids to the Natural History Museum where the animals were stuffed. They love it. They thought, oh, this is amazing. They're beautiful. They look alive. So I was thinking about the representation, about this lie that is having a stuffed animal, and you can show kids how they live and how the environment is. So all the animals you see here are stuffed animals. During 5 years, I went to collectors and stores and national history museums, and I started to photograph them in a very dramatic way. And for me, it's the result is there's several layers of lies. First is the animal, then is the plant, which is plastic or whatever, and then there's the landscape behind that is painted on the wall. So, like I mentioned, that little area where it can be true or false, it's exactly what I want to create. So the work becomes, of course, the light is dramatic, and there is this. I want to explore a little bit the death feelings that we all have, and the idea is to generate this doubt and make us think a little bit. Then we have Utopia, Alpha Cities, which are landscapes and places that don't exist. They don't exist because I combine two of my own photographs using Photoshop, and that generates a third place, and that exists in my mind and now exists probably in yours. I wanted to show you places that I invented. So again, the idea here is to use technology, use the tools we have to create this possible place. It's you can have your own ideas if the place will be better or worse than it actually is. If it will be good or bad to live there. And there are a few images that are more exaggerated, exactly to generate the doubt. The others are more difficult to realize what's going on. So Alpha City, for example, for instance, in the book, I decided to use the original photos which I used to compose, but I don't say what it is. So again, it's a part of giving an answer, but not a straight answer. It's about letting you know that there's something going on, but you don't explain directly. The same happens with still life. If you pay attention, you might understand what's going on. By the end of the book, you realize there's stuffed animal, but not in the beginning. And Alpha Cities also, there's a very important, something very meaningful in the work is that there are images that I took, that I traveled, and I went to the place and I decided to open my tripod and wait for the light, so the genesis of the work is based in a very classical photographical attitude. And the third work here is static movement, movimento estático. There are combinations of a frame that I choose, and I stay in the same spot for around 3 to 5 hours. And I generate this movement that it's kind of a study of how people behave in the environment. And again, I wanted to use and show it in a plastic, in a more interesting way. So I was also motivated to do some kind of street photography, but again, I wanted to do in a contemporary way. So in the end, and going back to what I mentioned before, my generation, we live in a world that we cannot pay the face price of an image. It's hard to say what it actually is. And there's a big dispute for our attention. We go through displays and images, several and hundreds of millions of images per year, per day. So it's very hard to have a second of attention. So I want to thank you for giving me minutes of your attention. That was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you.
Appreciate that you're here.
It's a pleasure.
Coming in from Sao Paulo, somebody else did come in. We are +2 now. The Vice Mayor of Baden did just arrive, Helga Krismer. But she didn't come alone. She did bring along the Minister of Climate and Environmental Issues in Austria, Mrs. Leonore Gewessler. So please welcome our Minister for Environment and Climate, a big, important issue of this festival. And now we move on to the Salgado and Latcani exhibition about Amazonia. So our next stop. More exciting, but 20 years is a good number, good enough.
I'm a journalist. I'm in the fact.
I'm a journalist too. And we just had a small chat about how to continue, and that means that we first hear about Salgado's vision of what Amazonia could be, and then our Minister of Climate and Environment, Mrs. Gewessler, will kind of respond to what she hears. So, Mr. Cyril Douay. Cyril Douay. Cyril Douay.
No, I'm not an artist. I'm not a photographer, you know. But no, we are very proud to have this exhibit there from Sebastião Salgado. You know, I don't have to introduce you Sebastião Salgado. Everybody knows him. Everybody knows him. But what characterizes Sebastião Salgado most is that this very great photographer has built, over several decades, a unique body of work, a true testimony to the state of our planet. There was the end of man, you remember, whose report on the Sierra Maestra mine gold was exhibited here 3 years ago, I think, 2 years ago. Then this amazing work on exile, then Genesis, and today Amazonia. And each time, Sebastião Salgado works on the evolution of our societies and on this relationship that humans have with nature, with our environment. And that's really the spirit of the Festival La Gacilly. It means this link that human being we have with the environment, with the difficulties, but with the beauty of the nature too. And if I want to continue concerning Sebastião Salgado's character, he's a man of immense loyalty, of great sensitivity, and above all, of exceptional fidelity. You know, he doesn't need La Gacilly, but he has this fidelity for the festival. Why? Maybe there is a story, a great link between the founder of La Gacilly, Jacques Rocher. Jacques Rocher is an industrial man. He's very fond of photography. He's very fond of nature too. And in 2007, Jacques Rocher met Wangari Maathai, the Nobel Prize, and he decided with the Fondation Yves Rocher, to plant trees in the world. And at this time, they planted around 130 million of trees all over the world. And in the project, there was this meeting with Sebastião Salgado some years ago. And Sebastião Salgado decided to replant, to make a tribute to the forest, to his own country, his home country, with Brazil, and to reforest in Mineira de Emores, his hometown, in Minas Gerais. And Fondation Yves Rocher decided to help him to plant these trees. And so there is this link. And we produced around 4 exhibits with Sebastião Salgado in La Gacilly. You saw 2 here, but we will continue. And Sebastião Salgado is a kind of companion of the festival, and is completely in what I told you, in our spirit, and that's very important. And I'd like to pay a tribute to Leila Salgado, the Sebastião's wife. When you see the picture of Sebastião, you can't imagine that there is a woman, very important woman in his life, 60 years. They met 60 years ago, and she's in all the project of Sebastião. Leila is completely inside the project. It means that she's the curator of the whole exhibits in the world, like this exhibit. She is the curator of this exhibit. She decided how to make it and how to imagine it. And so here we are in Amazonia. Amazonia is the last opus of Sebastião Salgado. It's 7 years of working in Amazonia, in Brazil. He made around 30 trips to go there, to be inside the villages, inside with the indigenous people. And you saw the work of Richard when he saw that everybody knows that Amazonia has to be protected. And he wanted to show not what is in danger in Amazonia, but to show this green paradise with 16,000 species of trees and plants, with these people living inside the forest, he wants to pay a tribute to these people living there. And he spent some weeks and weeks and weeks, sometimes in a village, to have this all this portrait that you see. And the construction of the exhibit, you have the environment, and inside the environment, one village. So you can imagine maybe around 12 villages, and with the environment of these people. What wanted to show Sebastião, it's really a tribute to the indigenous people. It's a celebration of how their culture have survived. They are the guardians of the forest, but they are guardians of the beauty. And it's for me, I hope it won't be the last opus of Sebastião. He's so old, but he told me, I remember 2 years ago, he said, no, I think it's my last work. And he begins to think about a new work. So we hope that in some years, we'll have a new exhibit here of him, and that we will be there. But he's really a great guy. And what is very interesting, when you can see all the body of his work. He began in the evil. He began in the darkness when he made these pictures of Exodus, when he made these pictures of Rwanda, of genocide, of the wars. And step by step, he goes from the evil to the paradise. And what I think that he didn't remark that. I remember that I told him, you began in the evil and you finish in the paradise. I said, but after Amazonia, what is the most beautiful paradise? Thank you.
Merci. And big thank you. This is extremely spontaneous now, so I will do it extremely brief. But I will say a grand merci à Cyril and ein ganz großes Danke an Lois für, sorry, and now I'll continue in English, for what you're doing here. I'm a minister for climate action and environment, so I know, and I've been working on this for months and years and decades of my life, that the relationship of humankind with nature and let's put it like that, the healing of this relationship is probably one of our most important tasks that we have as politicians, as decision makers, as persons with responsibility on this planet. And as a politician, I spent most of my life trying to convince other people that this means change, that this means we need to do some things differently, whether in order to save, whether in order to preserve, whether in order to amend or to heal or to make better again, but we need to change. And nothing equals and parallels the power that art, that photography in this case, or film has in making this change understandable and digestible to people all over the planet, and in actually creating the change or helping to create the changes Richard just also mentioned on the other on the can I say tour stop that we just had before. So the only thing I can contribute to this is a big thank you. A thank you to all of you for doing the work you do, for touching people and touching also me in these exhibits in a completely different way than any of us doing politics and trying to do something about the problem you picture here or the issues that are topic of this festival. You can do this in a completely other way than we can, and so I just want to say a big thank you for the work you do, and that is more an addition than a reaction, but I hope Luis will excuse that. But merci, danke, thank you.
Thank you so much. No, obrigado.
When Sylvia and I moved to Baden 30 years ago, and we ended up in Dumpergasse, we did not expect that it's the new Hollywood there. Since Anita and Richard also settle in the same, it's a tiny street, I have to say, a really tiny street. And it's significant for photography and even more significant for movies, for documentary movies to be precise. Richard used to be a photographer, but early on decided that movie is more impactful. And he's quite successful. He was shortlisted with one production for the Oscars, for the documentary Oscars. Oh, yes. It was about ivory games. It was a Netflix production, and it was inspired by Brent Thurton in a way. And it had really unforeseeable consequences, but it led to the fact that China did sign a law to ban the trade of ivory. So there's one person who was involved, very helpful. This is Mrs. Jane Goodall, which she has also some part in this festival. She comes here not so frequently as we would wish, but she was here already 3 times. And Richard and Anita are currently producing kind of a legacy documentary about her. She turned 90, and they're traveling together around the world, and it's kind of I call it farewell tour maybe. So secondly, he did win the Audience Award at Sundance, another very significant festival in America, with a movie about a very important fish called Wakita. It was a National Geographic production, and for those, well, most of you have been at the theater last night, so you know that he's the man who makes the Oscars. He's a member of the Academy who decides about the documentary Oscars, and because we are not all only who have been there yesterday, I love to repeat this because I'm really proud to live in the same street. Come on. Welcome, dear Richie. Please tell us what it is about with Amazonia as you see it.
Thank you so much, Lois. This is Yuki, by the way. My dog just arrived, as you see. Yes. All right. Chill. So she doesn't see me that much. That's the problem, because just this year I've been traveling more time than I've spent at home. My wife, Anita, here, she's a partner in crime, producer with me. We do all these films together. And also photos. We're here to watch the photos of the film that is coming out next year. So our current topic is the destruction of the Amazon. And current is maybe underestimating the thing, because we've been working on this for 5 years. We started in 2019. We decided to make this film. We were ready to go. And in early 2020, when the pandemic came and everything shut down, so we had to pause and break. But we had found our amazing hero of the film, which is Juma Shipaya, which is this lady you see back there on the screens. She's an amazing indigenous fighter, and there is this beautiful picture from Evelyn, who's right here, who took a picture of Juma, which you will see on the other side, which is really fantastic. She will talk about it later on. But Juma is this inspiring hero from the Amazon, who's also an amazing communicator, because she can talk in such a beautiful, emotional way about the plight of her people and the Amazon, that it was just, for me, the perfect way to talk about an issue that has been, a problem for decades. I mean, as long as I can remember, the Amazon has been a problem and a crisis place. But we wanted to catch the emotion of the people, emotion of the world. And the way I work, is that I try to do it through empathy, through inspiration, through positive energy, because we're talking about some of the saddest topics on the planet: extinction, the destruction of an ecosystem, the destruction of a species. So how do you catch an audience for that? How do you talk about terrible things when nobody wants to hear? Everyone wants to shut their ears and eyes and be like, okay, I just have this beautiful life in front of me. I can't think of everything else. It's too sad. So what I try to do is to do it through empathy, and for that I need the right amazing characters that can transport that message into the world. And Juma is one of those, and when you see the film, and hopefully also when you watch the pictures, you see the strength that she has inside of her. And the fortunate thing was that she, during the production of this movie, she decided to, well, it wasn't a decision, she fell in love with Hugo Loss, who you see on some of these pictures on the walls, who's this military guy who runs the special forces of the Environmental Protection Agency of Brazil. They're an elite unit of 30 very, very highly trained soldiers that, you know, Delta Force type, that can really survive anywhere. And what they do is they go after the criminals. They go after the bad guys in the most remote places in the world. And they attack. When they come, they attack and they destroy. These pictures look terrible because you see black smoke and, you know, environmental destruction as well. But what they do is, when you see these big ships, for example, that you see burning here, these are gold mining ships. I call them factory ships of death, because what they do is they put them into the places, into the clean waters of the Amazon, and they use mercury, poisonous mercury, to extract the gold from the rivers. And all this mercury ends up in the waters, and those waters are poisoned. So the fish that are in the waters, the indigenous who drink the water of these waters, who depend on these waters, they're all poisoned by these gold miners who go in for profit. And they cause such incredible destruction that what very few people know is the root of the problem we have in the Amazon. And that's the one big discovery we made on this film, is that the disappearance of the Amazon starts with these gold mines. Because they go in, they destroy, they weaken the indigenous communities around them through poison, through mercury, and they open up paths for other loggers and big investors to come in and put roads to reach those mines. And once the roads are cleared, the trucks come in and the logging starts and the devastation starts. The indigenous populations, weakened by the mercury, are pushed further away. They're too weak because they lose their hair, their teeth, they can't eat. It's like a slow death that was started decades ago, and we could see it when we were there. So we focus on this, and we focus on the people who attack it, who do something about it. Hugo and Juma are married. They have a child that was born during the production of the film. And it was the most beautiful story to see those two heroic fighters go after the worst criminals and also reach the hearts of us. And that's what's going to make the big difference, we hope, with these pictures. And when this story comes out, the film will be released next year. Hopefully at Sundance we'll have our big world premiere, and then it's going to have its own path towards the Oscars, many festivals. The film will be released here in Austria for, in cinemas. Hopefully in the Gartenbau Kino we'll have a big premiere, and it will take its path around the world. Most important, it will be seen by Brazilians who can do something about it. And I have these Brazilian photographers here who spoke, Cássio and, was it Luca? Yes, beautiful work, who said they didn't know that IBAMA does this work. They live in Brazil. They had never understood the work of IBAMA. So it's going to be fresh for them. It's going to be something that maybe can make a difference when the film comes out. Maybe it will be on Netflix, which has a great reach. And then we can really show the world and the Brazilians what is happening inside their country, make them feel the empathy of Juma and the indigenous people who just want to live and survive in their beautiful forests. And hopefully the film will make a difference. Thank you so much. And we'll now very soon move to Evelyn's picture of Juma, which may end up being the poster of our film. We'll see. And you will hear the story of how she captured that photo. Thank you.
How was this possible to get this very personal moment in the photograph? Please.
Hello? Hi. Well, when I heard about the project that were working Anita and Richard, I was really deeply touched. Because, of course, because how heavy it is, but also because in Chile and in all the countries in Latin America, we have indigenous people are having the same problem. So they are fighting for the land and they are being killed. So it's a threat that we all know, and it's a very sad story. So when Yuma came to Austria in 2022, I asked them if I could support also she and them with my photographic work wherever what they could need. And also because, of course, I wanted to photograph her. And they arranged that we could have this small photo shooting at their place here in Baden. And when we were doing the pictures, it was very special because it was a very hard time for Juma. Of course, her whole life has been hard now, as you can see. But exactly in this moment, she was really, really heartbroken because her village was under attack and her people was under attack. And she was far away. And she was totally sad and frustrated and angry that she couldn't be there. And she was here also fighting for them, but she was far away, and that was a very, very difficult situation for her. And she was exhausted, she was tired, she was sad. And we were making the photos, and of course, she's beautiful, and the pictures were okay, but it had felt something like showing her strength, no? Then I talked to her and asked her how was she feeling and what was, and then she told me this situation, and then this feeling now about her village being under attack and she far away and tired. So I asked her to think that she was at this moment not in front of me but in front of Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro, it was the last president from Brazil who was like supporting all the destruction from Amazonas, so he was her big enemy. And I asked her, like, imagine that you are now in front of Bolsonaro, look at him in the eye and show him that you are not afraid, that you can defend your people, showing that your anger, your frustration, and that you are not afraid of him, and then you can defend yourself and you can defend your people. So she totally took the role. She crossed her arms and looked at me with this face, no, with this intention. And I took the picture. So it was very briefly, and it was very, very tense. And yeah, so we got the picture. Right after that, I asked her to leave the role because it was really heavy. It was, she was really angry. And yeah, and I'm so glad that Anita and Richie let me to be with her and have this moment, and also very thankful to her that she opened it to me and showed me that, and that maybe this picture can help to show that these people are not just the fragile indigenous, helpless in the Amazonas, but they are really strong people, even if she's so small like me, and you can see her strength. So yeah, I'm glad, and thank you.
Some stories stay the same. They don't change from yesterday to today. You know how it goes. The cases for underwater photography, I told you it, and I wanted you to guess it's California or Australia. It's nonsense. Of course, it's Austria. And here is to replace, even if we cannot replace them, but unfortunately, Jennifer and David had to hop on a plane today. They are now somewhere over the water of the Atlantic, heading to Canada. But we have really great friends of them, replacing them under quotation marks. And this is Harald Hordosch and his daughter Esther. And they will tell from their perspective what they think about all this underwater world from their opinion. I just would like to remind you in the words of David, whenever he starts a talk, he says this, for me, famous words that Earth has the wrong name. It should be named water or ocean. And then he usually pauses and adds on and says, and if ocean or water has a problem, the people on Earth shouldn't even think about the future. This is where we stand. But Harald and Esther will clarify it maybe a little bit. Who wants to start? Esther.
Hello and welcome to our underwater exhibition, which is a little bit different than what we've seen on all the other exhibitions before. And we are lucky to stand here and replace our lovely ambassadors and talk about their work. And the magic about underwater photography is that you need to get into the water, you need to break this barrier between earth, air, and water. You need to get in, and we have a few photographs here in the exhibition that break this barrier, and you can see the upside and the downside, which is a very unusual perspective. And David and Jennifer have been underwater photographers basically all their lives, and we are happy to work with them for a very long time. And I would like to hand over the mic because my dad obviously knows David a longer time, and I'm just going to hand over to him.
Hello again. It is a pleasure for me and for CEWE, which is a very, very small Austrian company from Styria, to be part of this exhibition, because without our equipment and without the equipment which is inside our equipment, it's not possible to make these nice kind of pictures, which are absolutely necessary to have. Because as Esther and Lois already said, it is important to have a view what's important on Earth. And it's not Earth, it's water, because the water makes the Earth. And I think the work what David and Jennifer is doing since many, many years is very important for us. We have been walking through this exhibition now a long time. Everybody is sweating. I will keep it short. But I think it's important to sweat, to feel how it is when the temperature is rising. And with some of the pictures, and as I know, David is going to Antarctica now, he will bring back very nice pictures of this unique environment. And CEWE is just a little bit. We just give something in his hands that he is able to make these pictures. Just a few words, our company is around 35 years old. I was inspired by Hans Haas first and Cousteau, and I couldn't afford to buy an underwater housing, so I started it from the scratch, built it, and at the end it became my passion and my business. I gave up photography very early because there are so many much better photographers around me, so I focused on the equipment. And I think if you ever have any requirement of this, you know where to find us.
Thank you. And one more last aspect. I don't know how many of you have been to the presentation last night in David's and Jennifer's, not particularly their words because I can't quote them perfectly, but a lot of their work has been dedicated to show the changing world that we live in, underwater and sometimes above and underwater. And I think it's an important aspect of conservation, and they have been truly magnificent in their efforts. And yeah, your applause now will be for them. Thank you.
So anyway, to get going, please welcome Mr. Brent Sturton. Brent Sturton. Brent Sturton. He's the most humble photographer I know. He does not like this at all, but he deserves it.
Can I have the mic now? Thank you very much. Hi guys. Listen, I know you had a really long day. I'm sorry my German is terrible, so I hope my English is acceptable for you. Guys, you've been surrounded by work that's taken people several years, okay? Like this show, the one behind with Sebastian, Alain has done great work behind this show. I mean, all work where people have committed to a theme for a long period of time. Now you come to my show, okay? There's a very big difference. And so when you look at this show, maybe the thing to consider is this is what a typical assignment looks like, okay? So I was very lucky. The Rocher Foundation asked me to go to the Pantanal, which is an extraordinarily expensive place to work, and they gave me enough money to do 4 weeks, 2 weeks in the dry season and 2 weeks in the wet season. But it's not several years, and I feel like I did okay, but this is not knocking it out the park. This is like doing the best you can in limited circumstances. And if you guys are photographers, then I think you know what that feels like, okay? So the Pantanal is interesting because it seems to change all the time. Pia, you told me 2 days ago that the Pantanal is on fire again. So come here and tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I've been working in the Pantanal for like 30 years more or less, and so I'm a bit familiar with it. And usually you have a rainy season and a dry season, so the water goes up and down, and this huge area floods, and then it's dry again, and all the animals and plants are adapted, also to some fires which may happen with lightning. But in the last years, the floods didn't happen anymore as usual. The rainy season didn't happen. It was very bad. 2020, everything burned. Maybe you saw the photos of dead animals around. And so many scientists and NGOs, they made a lot of efforts to replant a lot of trees, and so they did. And then the fires came again. And this year is really, unfortunately, the worst. I was there in April, and that's usually when the dry season starts, but it didn't rain until April. And when I was there, it was supposed to stop the rain and start the dry season, but it was just the opposite. So it hadn't rained, and it started raining in April. So everything is a bit upside down. And and this year, since it didn't rain very much, it's burning really, really heavily right now, unfortunately.
So this is typical, okay, because as photojournalists, we get to cover a particular period of time. And so the story never finishes unless you really do something in a full cycle. So you doing 5 years on the Amazon project, David doing this job since 2009 and coming back and back with Jennifer. That's what it really takes to do these stories. But funding is an issue, and ADHD is an issue too, because the world is an interesting place and many things require good photography. So I'm more and more in a situation where I'm able to get grants which allow me to work a little bit longer. But I'm also more and more aware that in order to do some of the themes that I'm interested in really, really well, I'm probably going to have to commit to doing one thing for a few years. And honestly, that's kind of frightening for me, because I'm not very good at sticking to one theme. I need to shoot multiple things. Anyway, so let me stop boring you, and I'll show you a couple pictures. Let me start here. I'm amazed there's all these people. How did you guys get through like 5 hours of walking around and Lois they're barking at you, you know? So one other thing, I'm doing my best. So maybe like there's two pictures that right at the beginning that I think are meaningful. One, you know, this is a picture of an area that's permanently flooded in the Pantanal. Okay, it's an area where in the very early 1970s, the Brazilian government came up with this idea where they would make super farms in the highlands over the Pantanal. And what ended up happening is that they had record floods that year, and all that topsoil washed down into the Pantanal and changed the course of a number of rivers. And so certain areas became permanently flooded. And that's what it looks like. You know, for this in this place, this is permanently the situation. But in this place, before those floods, before all that soil came down, there were well over 200 cattle farms in the region. So, you know, just again, in terms of like, you know, the macroeconomics of big agriculture, etc., it's a permanent issue in Brazil. Yeah. Okay. And then this picture over here, Mr. Lodikani, in the way there, buddy. So, you know, I went to the Pantanal because there had been these really big fires, and when I got there, there was no fire, and the nature had been left alone and really recovered so amazingly that one of the very few evidences of fire that I actually saw was these burnt out trees, and there weren't that many of them because many had already collapsed and were becoming fertilizer. And then one day this very gracious young female jaguar came out and stood in the right place, and for me it was kind of a metaphoric picture, you know. So most people go to the Pantanal to photograph jaguars diving onto caimans. There are 25,000 really good pictures of that. And I didn't think I had anything to contribute, so I was looking for these kinds of scenes. Okay, let's walk down a bit. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Okay, guys, it's also interesting with the jaguar situation and the tourism, because you'll see a couple of pictures later on of cattle, etc. But the Pantanal is really an area where tourism is very important, but at the same time there is this dilemma between the value of the predator species, the jaguars, and the cattle ranches. You know, but the value of what the jaguars take from the cattle ranches is nothing compared to the value that tourism brings to the region. It's just a simple equation. So you will see more and more of this, etc. And it's important to remember that the Pantanal is a permanent wetland, so it's hard to develop it. It's not like people aren't trying, but it's, you know, every year zones flood, etc., etc. And when it comes to cattle ranching, they move their cattle. So areas where you've got, you know, a huge number, they have to be moved to higher ground. You know, it happens twice a year. So that's a place of permanent migration on that level. And it's also a place where you have more bridges than I've ever seen before, frankly. There are wooden bridges everywhere because of these floods that happen. You know? Yeah, it's a bit dark, guys, but it's not unusual to be going down the river and see these jaguars waiting to jump on caiman, etc. And I quite liked including them in the landscapes. This is headquarters of Pantera. Good organization, been studying jaguars in the Pantanal for a long time. Classic example of the bridges that connect all these flooded zones. Yeah, how am I going to do this? What's that? Thank God, because the print is dark. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Right. And in terms of the tourism, the fishing is a big deal, guys. These guys love to come there, sit on boats, drink beers, and fish. And it's hot, so I never really kind of got the appeal of it. But fishing's a big deal, and there are fish species in the Pantanal where it'd be very hard to find them anywhere else. This is this isn't particularly exciting. But what happened was a jaguar had been coming into this small fishing settlement and taking the dogs. So here they are trying to work out how to catch this jaguar. But as usual, the cat's much smarter. So we sat there for a couple of days, and the cat was looking at us and laughing, basically. Yeah. So this picture is probably a good example of that. What I said to you earlier in terms of how agricultural planning went wrong in the 70s. This was the one of 4 cattle ranches. You know, so you can see how if you had 2,000 head of cattle and you were ranching, what's happening? You don't? A little closer like this? I feel like Mick Jagger, man. Yeah, okay. So again, like what's interesting to consider is how, in the space of a couple of weeks, these guys went from being really productive cattle ranching communities, etc., wealthy, able to farm the way that they expected, to not being able to farm at all, and then not receiving compensation from the Brazilian government for what happened, even though it was government initiatives that dumped all that topsoil into the rivers and diverted all this water. So what you find with these farms is they typically only have very old people who really have very few alternatives, and they live in this state of permanent flood. Anything behind me here? Not really. And so what you find as a result of this water is that so many of these pantaneros, the cowboys of the Pantanal, I mean, it's not exactly open plain work most of the time. And so you see over here how they're forced to move their cattle all the time. So this is a common sight in the Pantanal. Yeah. One other thing is the bird life's kind of incredible. Really, if you guys do have a chance to go, it is a place to see. I think that the Pantanal, the fires are a great threat, but the fact that it is this floodplain, I hope will offer some protection against development. But if you go, I mean, this looks like a bird apartment to me, Yeah, so seeing things like this, it's not hard to see it. So, yeah, if you have the chance. But because of the fishermen, a lot of these fishermen are not really paying much attention when they're going. There's a lot of beer drinking while they're doing their fishing, and they often kill the crocs. They kill these caiman. So this is not an uncommon sight. Richard, is Richard here? So my only experience with Ibama on that trip was I took this picture, and then the Ibama guys arrived, and they said, "Did you knock this croc over? Come with us." Yeah, so I had to convince them. Like my driver was very like, "Hey, it's not us, man." Yeah, but I guess I like this landscape, and it was a way of talking about how the fishing is this. It's so pervasive that it often ignores the wildlife. Yeah, and then all of this, guys, this is just really traditional, like, Pantanero lifestyle with cattle, etc. They're very, this is how these guys dress. And the biggest dilemma is often, the Jaguar issue, but they have learned that the value of tourism is definitely something which far outweighs the cattle loss, and they are compensated, but they are compensated at something which a lot of these guys are telling me that it's like a third of the value of the cattle. But honestly, I've never ever heard a cattle guy tell me that, they got the full value of their cattle. And the cattle was always much bigger and the best cattle. And so I take it with a pinch of salt. But, when you talk about these big fires, these are the guys fighting these fires now. So I don't know what Lula has done, how much support is going on. Is Pierre still here? Where are you, Pierre? All right, come. You're the expert here. I spent like 2 weeks and 2 weeks. So what I'd really like to know is, what I'd really like to know is, I love how I've just roped you into this, but thank you very much. But it makes sense, right? What I'd like to know is, how does it work now? Because when I was there, Bolsonaro, the soldiers, the Brazilian army arrived 3 months later. The fires were gone. And these guys had been forced to make their own plans, etc., etc. Is anything changed? I mean, what do you know about the support on the ground?
Well, there are Brazilians here. Maybe they should explain the situation better than me. But as far as I understand, the consequences of Bolsonaro's regime are continuing, and so far that it's just very hard to control. And so they took the chance to burn as much land as they could when they were allowed to. And it's very hard to reestablish all the control systems, because one of the first things that Bolsonaro took down was the INPE, which was the aerial control, where they looked for fires and for cutting areas and everything. So it's a slow locomotive that takes on again. And then there are also the local politicians, the governors of the state of Mato Grosso do Sul, and several others who prohibited fishing. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, starting on the 1st of January of this year. So the people are not allowed to fish, or they can fish and they have to eat the fish right there where they are, but they're not allowed to take it like a kilometer further down. Which, I mean, there are lots of interpretations for this, but it's probably due to the idea that they kind of want to break the idea that the Pantanal is a wetland and it should turn into agricultural land, dry land, where you can grow more soybean, more sugarcane, and then turn the rivers into something a bit like we have in Europe, where you can navigate the whole year long, so that the rivers are not, as you said, in this very dynamic system which change every other year, and you have a city and you have the river, and the next year the river is 1 kilometer further on the other side. So they want to change this so that they have more production of agricultural produce and can transport it all the way down, because it's all linked with the Rio Paraguay down to the Rio La Plata system and off to the ocean. So that's the plan for people who want to make money. And I think it's not so smart, just because we need water. Yes, I mean, dredging a system that is based on sediment is kind of difficult, because the more you dredge, the more sediment is coming from the sides, and it will never stop. And the problem is the water cycles. I mean, all the big cities are in the southeast in a way, and they are not directly related to the Pantanal, but in a way, I mean, you have seen maybe the flying rivers, so it's all linked. And if you dry up a wetland that has the size of Switzerland, it will definitely affect the water supply to São Paulo, to Rio, and so on.
You see? Now, can I advise that you get your own resident biologist on every story? Because this is the way to go. Guys, it's just evidence again that, like, when we shoot our stories and we then go on to do other stories, things change. And I'm open to the idea that I need to learn that all the time. You know, it's interesting for me to hear that, because if I go back, then I get to focus on new issues. Okay, let's walk down. You know, what was interesting here was this was fairly close to the Pantanal site. This was new ownership of farmlands. You know, guys from Sao Paulo, et cetera, and for the first time they were baling hay. And what it meant was that they weren't going to move their cattle. I thought that was interesting, you know. What's your thoughts on that? Why? Is that a negative or a positive in your mind? It's a challenge, right?
To your mind, I'm a wetland ecologist, so I like the wetlands, I like water, and I like the water to be where it's supposed to be. And that's not here. So, well, I mean, the Pantanal has always been a place where people lived. It's a bit like a Kulturlandschaft, how do you say this? Culturally shaped landscape, where people have lived for a long time, shaping the environment, cutting down trees, having cattle, having other animals. So it's an interaction, and in the way the people who lived there, as you explained, they adapted. And I had an interesting thing that I observed one day. The horses in the Pantanal, they are able to feed on the grass below water. So they literally dive their nostrils below the water and feed on the grass, which is quite crazy. But you see the same thing in the Camargue, in the delta of the Rhone River. You have the same. You have horses who feed on this. So just a little observation of a biologist. But I love that. But yeah, it's supposed to be a wetland. And the natural cycles are already more difficult because of the climatic changes. But people influence a lot the water incidents, because the headwater forest, the forests where the headwaters are being cut to make beautiful residencies for the people who want to live outside the heat of the Pantanal. So on the weekend we drive up and are in this wonderful, cooler, fresher environment in these beautiful modern houses, but it's not really sustainable in the way that there used to be forest where the water would come from. So we are cutting down a little bit everywhere. I'm stopping. But thank you to give visibility to this.
There's a lot of other pictures that we have that are more relevant to those themes, etc. Some of it's here, but as you say, it's constantly changing. Yeah. Okay, so Pierre, this is a good example of what we're talking about here, right? Okay, so this is one of the largest rice farms just on the outskirts of the Pantanal. And when we talked about how you change natural river systems, this is what Pierre's talking about. Okay, so the guys who are the big agricultural superpowers in the region, this is their vision of how they'd like agriculture to continue in this area. What that means for wildlife, I think you can guess for yourself. And then, of course, you saw Richard doing great work on the gold mining in the Amazon. This is what mining looks like all around the Pantanal. You know, and of course, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into the groundwater, and these mines are ever expanding. So, you know, as Pierre was saying earlier, a lot of what's going to happen is encroachment, and it's going to come down to, I think, very much who's in political power as to what happens with this mining in the Pantanal. Yeah, and we see more and more dams. You know, this was interesting for me. It's not a fantastic picture, but there were very few indigenous people that I could meet in the Pantanal. And when I met this just one family who had stayed in place, there were 4 teenage girls, and they had Googled on their smartphones how to make the headdresses that their people 2 generations ago were making. And I thought that was kind of profound. That's how that works now. You know, it's just not what we think. So I don't know. You make your own mind up. But as I say, these girls learned how to make that particular headdress by looking up it on their phone. These are the headlands that Pierre's talking about, and actually I have a panorama which goes from here all the way around, etc. So, as you say, in terms of the generation of these incredible flying rivers, which contain more water than the entire Amazon itself, yeah, this is what's being cut down. So we're trying, you know, I worked here trying to make pictures just to show how beautiful it is. Yeah. I wish I had the panorama, guys, because it would give you a much greater sense of scale. And I think that's about all I really want to say about my brief trip to the Pantanal. Hopefully I get to go back, and hopefully you guys get to go and have a drink now. Thank you very much. Huh?
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Pia, for sharing this all with us. Next stop is not Vietnam. Next stop is Alain Schrader. And he's also a repeater to Baden. The first time he came here, he came in accompanied by a Nobel Peace Laureate. We had a great dinner at the house where another Nobel Peace Laureate did live once. So it was a strange situation because this certain Nobel Peace Laureate phoned whom did he phone? I forgot the name. One of the big tycoons in internet. Help me. Give me the name. No, not Bill Gates. No, not Elon Musk. No, wrong. Jeff Bezos. Thank you. He phoned Jeff Bezos. And because he was sitting in a situation on a table so that he couldn't go out easily, he had the phone call just in front of us, and we all could hear this conversation. Do you remember this? It was very strange. And it was about chipping in money for the World Food Program. And he asked for 100 million, and he was offered 10 million, he turned it down. And I was really impressed. How do you do fundraising? So this was my magic moment when you have been in Baden with us. But now we have a very much more magic moment because it's about our relatives out there, about the orangutans, and they are our closest on earth, and they are in bad shape. Let's put it this way. à l'entrée there, welcome.
Thank you. So first, technically, I will do one station here and then one over there. And the reason why is because here, in fact, you have two stories in one story. The first one is saving orangutans. So it speaks about the people who are dedicated to save the orangutan because they are in trouble. And then another part of the story is the destruction, like you can see here, of the forest. So there are many ways to destroy, they have many ways, unfortunately, to destroy their countries, Indonesia. And one is deforestation, one is the coal mines. And so you will see a few pictures in the beginning of the tour here. But the main aspect of the story is saving the orangutans. So you have to know that they live in two places in the world. One is Sumatra, second one is Borneo. In Sumatra, you have only like between 10 and 15,000. It's difficult to say exactly. And in Borneo, 50,000. And what I decided to shoot is an NGO called SOCP, Saving Orangutans. And what they do is they try to solve many kind of problems. So some orangutans are like pets. Other ones are lost in the forest because they have no place to go. Other ones are wounded. And so they have a facility where they can, a medical center where they can heal them. And then another job they do is when they have a young orangutan, they would, let's say, raise him during 8-9 years. And the final goal is to release the orangutan in the forest. So that is mainly the whole process. So I don't want to be too long, but we will do one more station over there so I can explain a little bit their work in the facilities, like in the hospital. And I suppose it's very easy to see that one of the biggest problems of Indonesia is the fact that they have a lot of resources. So they had the forest destroyed. They had, or they have, coal mines, which is a disaster. Now I heard that they have lithium also. So in fact, the story I'm telling here is never going to end because there is room to destroy the entire island of Borneo. If you see my fist, that was Borneo in the beginning, like let's say 40 years ago. Now the part of the forest is just, let's say, a piece of €2 in the middle of the fist. Everything else is gone. So let's stop here. So what you see is the work of these people in in the facility. So here to the left, some teams are going in the jungle because many orangutan have no place to go. Why? Because there are a lot of palm trees, plantations. So imagine you live in a forest, and suddenly humans they open up palm oil plantation, and so you cannot. You think you are alone in your forest, but in fact, when you want to travel, you cannot do it, and so you are lost in the palm oil plantation. There is nothing to eat. You are lost, and there are some good people in Indonesia, so they will call this rescue team. They will come. They will sedate the orangutan, check if there is any problem, like on this picture. If everything is fine, they will relocate the orangutan in another forest. And if there is a problem, they will try to save them, like the next pictures over here. Here you have a baby orangutan who has his arm. The arm was broken, and so they decided to save him. So here you have all the pictures where you can see the X-ray, the operation. And to do that, they had to call like a surgeon from Switzerland because he's well trained and he already did operation on orangutans for the last 15 years. And if you continue, you will see it goes on saving orangutans. Sometimes they would walk like 3 days, and of course I was with them 3 days in the jungle to try to locate one orangutan. And one day, a little bit over there, if we can continue, one day we found a mother who had 74 bullets in her body, and she was accompanied by her baby. Yes, so here, more pictures of operations. And so these guys are big males and they are blind. So that means that every 6 months they live in captivity in cages. So, but now they have a facility with islands. So those old males can live there in peace. But at the time it was not ready. Then over there you have Hope. So the female orangutan with 74 bullets in her body. And when I say we, I mean, I was just a photographer, but when the team saved her, she was with her baby. You can see over there. And unfortunately, during the transfer to the clinic, the baby died. And so that is for me clearly, I mean, the picture is very small over here. You can see. Here is the vet in the car, and he was trying to resuscitate the baby, but it unfortunately didn't work. So for me, this picture, usually I put it at the end of the story, and it's really like a symbol of our failure to be able to save our, I can say our brothers, because it's so strong when I first look in the eyes of those orangutans, it feels like you see yeah, like your brother, your friends, and it's very impressive. So I let you walk alone because it's more or less always the same thing. Destruction, a few pictures of destruction with palm oil plantation, and a few good things when they save the orangutan, and at the end when they release the orangutan in the forest. And it's working well because already they have saved like 150 specimens. So in one way, it's a good thing, but I've been in Indonesia many times. And at the end, you will see, I think on the right, there is a picture of the new capital of Indonesia, because you may know that Jakarta is sinking. And so I took a picture with the drone, and what you see is the jungle, and like here, the path where they try to build the new capital. And so they say it's sustainable. I don't see anything sustainable in that capital. So in one way, you have great people saving them, and in another way, you have, I don't know, politics who really, they don't really know what they are doing. So I think they will be judged in about 50 years. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the visit.
It's a mistake to believe that if the first one arriving stops here, that the one at place 162 will hear the same like you do. It's really a wrong perception of reality. I tell you this now. And because we have a tender lady on our side, so we cannot have her forcing to scream into this. I could do that because I'm a... Well, no, I'm not going into this now. So let's do the procedure. Whom do we have here? Her name is Lorraine. Lorraine Tursi, Lorraine Tursi, Lorraine Tursi. She will tell us about what it is to live on the trailer with how many men?
Oh, only 4.
Only 4?
Yes. But the space is amazingly
I thought this was really
It's all about that.
Yeah, okay, I know. Yeah. The floor is yours, the ship is yours, the trawler is yours.
Exactly. Thank you. You know, I worked on ships before, but the day that Siri called me and told me, he gave me just this call, what you did on with fishermen before, would you like to do it again for the La Gacilly Festival? I said, of course, of course. But I knew this time it will be different because it's storm, winter, so I knew the life on board will be harsh for me because I'm not used to the sea. And so I said it will be harder than usual, but it will be worthy because it will be more spectacular. But beside the spectacular way is, for me, it was important to meet really the life of this man, and I managed to discuss with them anyway. And this work is about transmitting what is really their life. On the side of the exotism of the images, there is a reality of people working. And is this man, it's their artwork that are feeding us. And they're very proud of it. And it's an in-between word because in the same time, they are working on trawlers. Trawlers is the worst way of fishing because it's taken everywhere from the ground and the sea, and nothing is left. But, so the thing is, these men are working on small scale, only 4 people, as we said, on board, very small ships. In 1 year, they can fish what the industrial one harvests in one night. 1 year, 1 night. It's very different. The scale is very different. And these men are dedicating all their life to feeding the people. And their life, the day, night, because I couldn't believe that in 2024, where people in Europe have still this kind of way of life. Because if this condition would be ashore, it's forbidden. Because each 4 hours, they have to wake up if they are sleeping or eating on anything. It's for taking the trawler out of the water for fish and to sort the fish, to repair the nets. It's hard work every day. And each time they can sleep for maybe 2 hours in a row, maximum. And they're doing this for 10 days. Go back at ashore 2 days and go back at sea. It's a crazy life, definitely. And some people said to me, but you were seasick and it was hard time. But yeah, but I was on board for 4 days. They are doing this for life, daily life. And so trawler, it's not about this man, and because some of them told to me, you know, my daughter, she was pointed at school because your father is a dolphin killer. And it's very harsh for her because his father is proud of his job, of course, and that's normal. And because it's not this man who was doing the best, it's about the system. It's about political decision. I mean, the fishermen, they are okay for the quotas, for example, because they want that fish is still there. So it's for them, it's very important to just be doing their job and sorry for my English. Sorry. But, yeah, and I have many stories because as photographer, I think that we are just messengers from these people to you directly, and that's why I write a lot what they speak directly. I don't try to translate. I just give you the sentence that they gave it to me, and. You know, I have a visitor that told me the last time, you know, now that when I will see the fish that I'm eating in my plate, I will think to these guys. For me, it's everything. And the guy some of the fishermen came to the exhibition and they was proud of themselves. And for me, it's all the targets are joined. So, and I will not be longer because I could speak for all the day about them and about what they have, but I let you discover it with the captions that are very important because it's what they're feeling, and it speaks about contextualization and how they are managing with all this not black and white things, but all the shade of the gray of the situation. Voilà.
If you want to be part of a world premiere, it's now. We have here a lady directly from Tehran, and she doesn't speak German, unfortunately, which we would understand best. She speaks excellent English, but we do not want to hear her English, but we want to hear her Farsi. So this is the first time in the history of this festival that we have a speech in Farsi only. So open your eyes, just listen to the sound of this language and feel into the pictures. You don't need to know exactly the details. You're people, you're creative people. Get ready for Farsi. And Nazli.
Thank you so much.
Nazli Abbaspur.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. خیلی خوشحالم که اینجا هستید همه و برای من خیلی باعث خوشحالیه که میتونم به فارسی حرف بزنم. I think you have to learn Farsi. I think you have to. Yeah. Okay. به طور کلی من روی عکس‌های خانوادگی کار میکنم، آلبوم‌های خانوادگی، عکسایی که از گذشته به جا مونده، برای اینکه فکر میکنم چیزی در گذشته از خودم و دیگران به جا مونده که من از دست دادم و دلم براشون تنگ شده. شاید در زندگی قدیمم، این reincarnation that mean در تناسخ قبلیم و اینی که من همیشه دلتنگ گذشته هستم، اینی که همیشه فکر میکنم یک چیزی در گذشته، در بچگی من یا در زندگی قبلی من جا مونده. بعد و بنابراین توی آلبوم‌های خانوادگی دنبالشون میگردم که پیدا بکنم چقدر زندگی اونها میتونه شبیه زندگی الان من باشه یا چقدر زندگی من میتونه متفاوت باشه با زندگی که مثلا پدر بزرگم، مادر بزرگم یا گذشتگانم داشتن. اینا در رابطه با مجموعه تناسخ هست. It's about the reincarnation series. And for another series that's called the enigmatic fringe of existence, it means مرز مبهم وجود. اینها در رابطه با خونه هایی هستش که مخروبه شدن، خراب شدن و فراموش شدن. خونه هایی که نسل های متفاوتی توشون زندگی کردن و من فکر میکنم که تمام این خونه ها، تمام این ساختمون های قدیمی تک تک سلول هاشون حافظه دارن و همشون شاهد خوشی ها، ناراحتی ها، مهمونی ها و خیلی رازهای خیلی زیادی بودن، ولی الان همشون فراموش شدن، نه در واقع اینها رو بازسازی کردن، نه به آپارتمان تبدیل کردن، ولی این ساختمون ها در واقع دلتنگ روزهای اوجشون هستن، دلتنگ روزهایی هستن که پر از آدم بودن، پر از خاطره بودن، پر از شادی و نشاط و در واقع هیجان بود و الان فراموش شدن و دارن در واقع قصه و دلتنگی اون زمان رو میخورن. They miss the memories, the building, miss the memories that they passed in, they had in past. This is for the enigmatic fringe of existence. It's about the building. It's about the memories from the building, from the people who they lived in the building. That's it. Thank you. Merci, merci, merci. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is really fantastic.
I'd like to say just one word, please. Just one word, because you know, Nazli Abbaspour is from Iran, and she's a great artist. There are some very, very great artists and women artists in Iran, and there is only one gallery, photo gallery in Iran, the professional. It is the Silk Road Gallery, and created by Anaïta Garbayan. And this gallery, Nazli is from this gallery, like Myriam Ferozi, like other artists, fantastic artists. They are the voice of Iran, really. And this gallery closed 2 months ago because the government decided to close the gallery. And some photographers, some artists like Nazli, they can't today show their work inside the country. So it's fantastic that La Gacilly can show this work and to be the voice for the Iranian artist. And really, please, she has to continue working like that. Thank you. And we need you. And we need you. For freedom too.
Thank you very much, Cyril. I appreciate that. And we talked already on the picnic area that we might have some idea to pitch something in Paris to create a possibility to exhibit these wonderful works and these wonderful ladies and give them a second life, if you will. And we try at least. So I appreciate it really to have your mother language here. It's not so important that we hear and really understand every single nuance of your work, but we see the images and just the way you talk differently, of course, when you use your mother language, and it's just such a beautiful flow to it. And for Beth, it means you can talk English, of course. So after an artist talk in Farsi, which I appreciated very much, I didn't understand anything at all, but I felt much more than I would listen to language I know, because I was ready to fall into the sounds. And it was a beautiful experience. I think it's not good to do it in each exhibition, to do it in Farsi. But we're not about here. We are having English here, and I had the honor already to listen to Beth Moon at the Leica Gallery 3 days ago. It's already 3 days, my God. 3 days ago, and it was such a beautiful atmosphere. And I do not allow you to create this atmosphere again, because then we will never end up at dinner. Because it was kind of a room of peace. It was a room of silence, even when she spoke. It was kind of a room of well-being. And of course, this well-being has a source in your voice, but also in the subject matter. Trees, well, look around. We are here on trees grounds, and even over there's a very spectacular one, a platane. And at the first place, of course, we did think to put her exhibition around the platane, but then it dawned to us that trees plus trees plus trees, it's maybe too many trees. Right. They do not have their freedom. And so we decided to have this wall at the end of the garden planted with your amazing trees. So welcome, please. Now you know it. It's an easy name. Beth Moon. Beth Moon. Beth Moon. I mean, how weak is that? It's an easy word. Moon. Beth Moon. Better. My God. Sometimes.
Thank you so much, Lois. And I think you made the exact right decision. This is the first time I'm seeing the position here. And I'm so happy to be here amongst the fountains. And this place is perfect. So thank you very much. Okay, so on just a personal level, this project to me was a way for me to reconnect with the natural world. I was living in England, and I just happened to come across an ancient yew tree in a churchyard, actually in a graveyard, and it was a 2,000-year-old yew tree. And I was so struck by, I guess, the age at first. I just couldn't wrap my head around how a tree could survive this long. This was 25 years ago. And I guess I was wrapped up in the beauty as well. So I decided that I wanted to explore other trees. So I started research, and it was lucky I was in England because that's a country that boasts the most ancient trees, I guess, of any country. So I had a lot to choose from. And it was the sole reason that I even picked up a camera. I decided that would be the best way to chronicle what I was seeing. And so not long after, I moved to California, and that allowed me to explore, oh my gosh, bristlecones, the sequoias, redwoods, Joshua trees. We have some here. And in the beginning, for me, I had this impression that these trees were so big and strong and formidable. Little did I know that through this whole process, that unfortunately I would be recording the demise of many. So I know it's kind of late in the day, and so I want to make this brief. My most recent project of a couple years ago that I did a book on was the African baobab. And the reason for this was I had been exchanging information with a scientist who was radiocarbon dating the oldest trees in the southern countries, and we would exchange locations. And when he wrote to tell me that the largest baobab, half of it had toppled over and died. And I'm going to interrupt and back up. During this time as well, global media was reporting the loss of many of the biggest giants. So this, to me, felt like a real warning bell, and I decided I really wanted to get down there. I wanted to document the death of this tree. And it felt very urgent to me to then find the last remaining giants down there and record those as well. So current projects, I'm really skipping fast, but now current projects, I am working on oak trees. And I'm picking England because they have many ancient oaks. And I'm picking the oak because I don't want to bore you with details, but the oak has a predetermined, somewhat predetermined lifespan of about 1,000 years. They say 300 years growing, 300 years living, 300 years dying. So an oak can't really get to be more than 1,000 years just because of the structure of the tree. And I feel that best kind of fits into, like, not the same years, but a human lifespan. And I guess I'm always trying to draw comparisons because I feel that, you know, what you love, you're going to protect. So these ancient oaks in England are mostly there because they're on private estates. So I'm working with a a scientist from Kew Gardens and getting the locations, which means I'm writing a lot of letters to landowners that don't really want to bother with anybody coming onto their land. So it's challenging, but very rewarding when I get accepted to go. And I'm talking a little out of order. I think my primary goal in even starting this project was that I was, I felt so strongly about these trees. I was very encouraged when I felt a certain amount of success, because that meant to me that other people were feeling the same way. And I was very encouraged by their appreciation for trees. And getting back to the goal is, my goal was then to just share these images with people that aren't able to travel, because so many of them, like, I can't say all the way down, but so many of them only exist in a certain part of the world. The dragon's blood trees are only on this little island off of Yemen, and you know, they're very difficult to get to. Other possible future project, and this, I have to say, is a really lovely benefit of this photo festival. And it's because of Yoshi that I'm going to Japan, because he told me about certain sacred trees in Japan. So thank you for that. And my last thing I will say is, I do not get grants, and I don't operate on the same way that I think a lot of you do. I do all my own printing, which is a platinum printing process, and I'm able to fund my trips through print sales, which it works for me because I have a lot of control that way. And other than that, I said I was going to keep it short, so thank you so very much.
To make the announcement very short in the light of the dinner I had, I welcome Mr. Yasuyoshi Chiba. Here he is, World Press Photo Award winner of one of my most favorite images we will see in a little bit. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Sorry for my English first, and I try to make simple, but please listen. Because most of you are wondering why Japanese are here, and that's I'm thinking now, but that's what I wanted from the beginning of this career. I just want to explain a little bit about my life, how I started the photography, and then how I reached to these scenes. I'm Japanese born, of course, raised in Japan. First, I started Japanese newspaper company called Asahi Shimbun, because when I started thinking about Korea, I had several ways, curiosity, but one is a photography I liked, and also I like travel. So how can I get this photography and the travel, make it for living? And then I just realized that newspaper will be the best. And then I took an exam, 6 times interview, and then finally I got a position in 95, so it's quite far away, because it was still film time. Sorry, okay, it's okay. And so I quit it 2007. Until that, I moved in Japan almost every 2 years in different places. So I thought I really love Japan. I really love countryside. And I really satisfied. But during that move, I met the Japanese Brazilian. They look like Japanese, but they are completely different people. And because when like before World War II started, lots of Japanese immigrated to Brazil as a labor. And then they made, sometimes they made a fortune, they sometimes failed their life. and had such a hard time. And so after that, the third generation going back to Japan for making money. So I met those guys in third generations. And then I realized that there is an interesting country in Brazil with a Japanese community. It's the biggest community still. So I was happy with as a staff photographer in Japan, but I was thinking about moving out. And then I met my wife, Akiko, and she was also happy to move to Brazil. So we are almost quitting to move to Brazil as a freelance. Then she got the job in Kenya. So literally I became jobless, and so she was the one who make a living. And after 6 years, I moved to Brazil because I was connected to AFP. And when I spoke about my initial plan, my boss at that time, the boss said, the guy in São Paulo quit it, so you want to be a staff. So that's why I moved to Brazil. And then my daughter, Sawa born. So she's also a Brazilian. And after, it's a very interesting time of a World Cup and the Olympics. And after that, I choose back to Kenya. And 2017, I back. And then last year, I decided, because my limitation is finished in Brazil, in Kenya, I moved to Jakarta. And they are still in Nairobi, but they're going to join me next year. Okay, so sorry, it's a bit long. So, Brandt said something about time. He's mentioned like a very short, but if I look at my productions, especially like last year, I'm so little bit shame myself because there's no theme. And it's not a longer project. Actually, it's inconsistent theme, topics. Every pictures are different. But I thought this is a kind of an advantage of my work. So today I want to explain a little bit of how I work every day. So now I'm working as AFP. It's a French international news agency, staff photographer. Actually, my title is chief photographer for Indonesia and East Timor. What I do is not only taking photos, but coordinating photos. Sometimes I deal with the local photographers to get the pictures and then send immediately to my company. And I say this is like 100 meter. I think everybody is a long distance runners, and I'm the only short distance runner. I think it's 100 meter because our deadline is almost same day. So sometimes it's very time sensitive. I have to send directly from camera. If you have a camera, very, very professional ones, you see a LAN terminal, right? Or maybe there's a function called FTP sending. And those are for us, because I have to use that function to send immediately from the camera to my editors. So I didn't shoot this, but I explained this is extreme situation, World Cup. The first game, once the player touched the ball at the beginning, 2 seconds later, clients receive the images. 2 seconds later. It's crazy. Yeah. And just on 17, there's a Independence Day in Indonesia. My colleague supposed to send the pictures, but they didn't send pictures on time. He sent me a picture 1 hour and a half minutes after our competitors sent. So imagine, just 1.5, but for us, it's a huge problem. So every day, I'm taking this kind of pressure, but in the end, I really like it because I think I heard the word called the Delta team, who can survive any situation. I think that's me. because I can cover anything, any topics. Okay, so I know it's too much, too good to call me, but I feel that in that way. So I want to explain one thing about the first picture. It's the green field. That images I took in Kenya at the beginning of my freelance career, because it was 2008 after the presidential election. Always it's problematic because they don't like the results. So what happened was after the incumbent president re-elected, the opponent leader start making noise. And those candidates were supported by each ethnic groups. You know, Kenya has more than 40 ethnic groups, so each group has a certain supportive candidate. So that turned to be a nationwide conflict between these ethnic groups. And because we don't see the boundaries, but they know where's our territories. So only the foreigners could beyond that boundaries, because they are making a checking point, and then asking the local language, the mother tongue, and if you cannot speak, you disappeared. And basically, 1,000. It was said that more than 1,000 people are killed. So that was a huge incident. So during that time, I heard a rumor that there is a Maasai warriors fighting. You know, Maasai is a very famous tribe, jumping high and killing lions. And so I just followed the rumor and to go down to the south. And then I met this situation. Actually, I met this situation after I waited one day. So you see, if you go look closer, well, they don't look like Maasai because they don't wear the traditional attires, but they are fighting with bows and arrows. I never seen such a tough fight before. So later, I was told that you should send this to National Geographic. And what happened was the downside is another group called the Kipsigis. And then these guys are Maasais. And just before the sunset, they start fighting around 200, 300 people. And it's only continued like 15, 20 minutes. And in the end, I carried 6 warriors to the hospital because one guy got shot here in a cheek, and some guy got it in the side. And so I'm kind of wondering why these warriors can fight in this large scale, because there's a commander, but how they can train themselves. So that's how I started my journey to follow a Maasai community later on. So this time I stop here, but if you are interested, maybe next time I can show you another pictures. But in the end, I really wanted to shoot killing lions, this kind of ceremony. But what this told me was, if you can pay $3,000, we can organize a lion. So I said no, of course. But okay, so if you look at images, I want to go to that little bit to the center. Yeah, yes. Okay, thank you. This is okay. This is okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next I want to explain to you about these pictures. This won the picture of the year in 2020 for the World Press Photo. It's in Sudan, Khartoum. Actually, I went there for replacement of our local photographers. You know, it's been such a busy days. It was in the middle of a revolution. Okay, I just skipped the exact the background, but what I was there was completely after the festive moment. The security guys are everywhere on the roads. It's very difficult. No demonstration at all, and also the internet was completely cut off. So nobody outside, and I was a bit, honestly speaking, it's disappointed because I cannot do any good job. And then one day, my Janice told me that there is a kind of a meeting, people's dialogue between local leaders and the people. So we went there, without expectation, and but somehow the whole area, residential area, was completely blackout, so no light at all, and so they were kind of preparing generators, and then, but it's a very slow process. And so, what can you do without light? I cannot. I didn't have a flash, and so completely. How do you say, depressed myself, honestly speaking. And then suddenly somebody start clapping hands. And then I saw this situation. Because of no lights, everybody using a smartphone to light it up. At the center, this guy he was 16 years old. Later I found. Because this time I took a picture of him quite long time. I followed his face expressions. It's so charismatic. But I'm afraid to ask his name because during my 10-day stay, I was caught by somebody 2 times because I had a registration press card, so I have no problem. But somehow I got twice threatened by somebody. And our local photographer, local journalist, he also didn't understand who they are. So I'm a bit afraid of this. So I didn't ask his name. But suddenly, after my award news went there, local news media they found him in just a half day. So now after this, this is my first time how my picture really changed somebody. He was called by a high school in Netherlands as a scholarship student, and he went to Netherlands. And then now I saw the article that he's learning in the US now at a university. So, and he really wanted to be a political leader in the future. So I want to see him in Sudan in the next time. I want to explain two more pictures. And one picture here, this is in Lagos. I went there for the presidential election. So when I had a free time, I really wanted to go to a slum called Makoko. It's very famous as African Venice because everybody using a boat, and then they are living under in the water, not in the on the water. Thank you so much. So this is what happened. This guy controlling the boat is a teacher. And these kids are pupils for the elementary school. And what happened here is this school is collecting kids every morning because there is no transport. So this teacher is collecting kids like 2 hours in the morning. And also they really pushing to make them give them English lessons. because Nigeria is official language is English, but because of this slum is the language is more clear. Most of the people are from Benin, the country next, and then they use different languages. So once they start living only inside the community, they don't speak English. That means that they cannot go out from the slum. So that's why these teachers are really, really pushing kids to make them understand English every day. I'm really impressed this kind of effort, and I really happy to see this kind of to discover this kind of fact. So thank you so much. Okay. And then sorry, no, wait. Sorry. That's all for them. Yes. For them. And lastly, I really wanted to introduce my picture because this moment really changed my perspective on my work. This is during tsunami hit in Tohoku region in Japan 2011. Obviously, they are taking hot bath. Japanese, we love a hot bath, right? It's very, very Japanese. But this, look at around. This is completely hit by a tsunami. And they're using this box. This box is the box for the industrial waste. So they burning the debris, and then they enjoying. And sometimes, when we cover this kind of disaster or serious situation, we tend to ignore this kind of the moment because they're happy, they're smiling, and this is a serious situation. Why they are smiling? Sometimes the photo editor says, but why? This is a fact, right? And then this is how people are making a better in a worse situation. So after this, I try to find more variations of what people are doing. So if you look at little bit that picture, the boy looking up the mother, that's yes, that's thank you. That's the outside of shelter where people are sheltering outside after cyclone hit. It's very early morning. Sorry, it's a bit long, but I really want to explain about this situation. So this is called the buzi. I was told that this buzi is completely isolated. No internet, no food, no water. So people are really suffering. So I really wanted to go. But only way is only by the boat to go up the river. So I hired a fisherman's boat. And in the morning, there was a huge boat came to me. So when people saw it, they came to ask for the ride to the village. So I said, okay, I ask you a captain to select, and then 13 people came with me. After 30 minutes, the boat hit something. The bottom hit something, and hit again, and then stopped because it was almost to the bottom of the river to the sea. The tide is getting lower, so it's completely lowered, and we completely stuck. So after the water comes up, I had to stay like 6 hours. So this should be a day trip. I said all the passengers, sorry, after this, we have to go back because I don't have any money. I don't have any preparation to stay at night. And also I was told that there's no food, so I don't want to make any trouble. And then all the passengers against me, no, we have to go because we have food, we have water, no problem. You can stay in my home. And then finally we went there, and then they gave me a food. And then I woke up 5 o'clock, and then I took this picture. So when I saw this, I really felt happy because it's completely terrible situation, but I felt very peace. The boy was, this face. I think this is normally we kind of are not most wanted picture, but I'm really happy that I could send this picture. So, yes, I said my work is like 100 meter, but it's always the one rule I'm following. It's only capturing the fact. So I don't manipulate. I just saw what I took only what I saw, and now people are really saying about AI. Yes, I know such a wonderful pictures I saw already by the AI generated pictures. But for example, like 100 meters, if somebody made a record, world record by the drag, with a drag, can you agree or can you believe? You can't, right? That's why what we are doing is work purely candid, without any drag. So so that's why I really like to be here, since I choose this work as a combination of a travel and a photography. And then finally I ended up here in Baden. Thank you so much for your opportunity to me to show you. Thank you so much.
And by the way, I thank you from the bottom of my heart to live this respect, because all of they like Nadia and Yasuyoshi, they waited all day that they can translate their messages to you, and I'm really so happy that you have the patience and the respect also to give them the chance to tell their story. I really adore you. It's great. Nadia, we have a thing. We work together, we discuss together, and we exhibit together. And it's just wonderful to talk to her. She's sometimes, I don't know why, in a way shy, which she is not at all, because she has so much to say, and this is what we are ready now to listen to, what you have to say. Nadia Firuki.
So it is getting a bit late, so I'm not going to be too long. I think everybody's a bit tired, but so let me start with saying that I started this work about 15 years ago on matrilineal societies. So when I started this, I didn't imagine that I would find so much richness and diversity in all these different communities I've covered. Many have unfortunately disappeared or are disappearing, but there's still quite a lot left. Now, I talk about matrilineal and not matriarchy societies, even though matriarchy is a term that most people are familiar with. The reason why I say this is because I met, when I was doing research on this project, I met with a lot of anthropologists, and most anthropologists claim that matriarchy never existed. Then there's other anthropologists who claim that it did exist. So there's a dispute between that. So basically, as I'm concerned, my goal is not, it's not my vocation to defend one theory more than another. So I decided to name this work in the name of Mother. It's because the woman is really in the central place in all these communities I've met. So what's interesting is that in matrilineal societies, there's three important points. The first one is the transmission, which is through the female lineage, meaning that it is the girls and not the boys who inherit the land, the house, and in some cases the commerce of the family. So this is the transmission. Then the second point is the children. They belong to the mother's clan, meaning that it's the mother, the children belong to the mother's clan, and the guardian of the children is the maternal uncle. So it's basically the brother of the mother that has responsibility over his nieces and nephews, but the biological father has no authority over his own children. And the third typical matrilineal point is matrilocal. So matrilocal basically means that when a couple marries, when a couple marries, the man leaves his clan, his mother's clan, to move to his new wife's clan. So those are the three main matrilineal points that are important to understand. And what I also noticed in the, well, what I've, after being so many years in all these different tribes, is that what's interesting is that unlike in patriarchal societies where men dominate, in these societies there is no domination from the women. They don't seek to be above or anything. There's some sort of a balance between the two. So I've been to 10 different countries, so there's the Moso in China, the Minangkabau in Indonesia, in Kenya the Samburu, in Guinea-Bissau the Bijagos, in Mexico the Zapotec, and in India the Cassis, etc. You will discover them here. I think it's better than I just name them all. So it was very interesting for me to, the conclusion of all this work is that it's interesting to see that there's not just one way of transmitting or of caring for someone, but there's many ways, and I think it's always a lesson for us to see that us living in a Western patriarchal world, we have a tendency to think that we're modern, more modern than other cultures. And I think that's wrong. I mean, we have to, again, as I said, we have to learn from each other. And what else there's so much to say, so I'm sorry, I'm just a bit tired at this point, but I don't know, what else can I say? I can give you a few examples. So, for example, in the Moso in China, also it's all micro-societies. There's not one whole country that's matrilineal. It's always more small societies in each country. And for example, for the Moso, the marriage does not exist. So they unite only for a time being. So for example, the man, the Azu, who is the lover, he leaves his mother's house to go visit his beloved, and he can stay there for a certain amount of time. She decides whether it's 1 night, 6 months, 10 days, whatever. So it's sort of a free love, as we would translate it to, but for them it's normal. And for example, the word father does not exist in Moso language. So each of these communities I've met, they each have their own specification, but what links all of them is the fact that women has a central part in the society. Yeah. Sorry. Like this? Like this? I'm not very good at this. Then there's another, the biggest, the largest matrilineal society in the world is in Indonesia. There are about 4 million, and it's the Minangkabau. And what's interesting there is that although it's a Muslim country where usually women inherit 1/3 and men 2/3, in this community, what's interesting is that they were able to do a combination of the customary law, which is called adat, which gives the woman a privileged position, meaning that she inherits the house again, the land, and if a couple separate, the man, she keeps everything. So they were able to combine Islam with this customary law, and it's been working for 2,000 years. Most of these communities I've been to are about 2,000 years old, so they're really ancient communities. Then there's others that are more, I call them modern matriarchy. I'm not sure it's the right word, but for example, in Kenya, I went to the Samburu tribe, and the Samburu women have very, very little rights. They basically own nothing, and they have no status at all. So there's this village where women gathered, and it's all women, no men. They're not against men, but they've all had issues with men, so they've gathered and formed this village where only children are allowed until 16 for the boys, then they have to leave. And since I first went, it was the first one I went to. Since I first went there, since then, 15 years ago, now there's several villages like this. So this really spread. And I've also founded a small humanitarian, very modest organization where I've been helping them because they're very courageous and very poor women. So they really need help. The way I function in my work is that I have a lot of empathy. For me, it's very, very important that, because us as photographers, we come and we take something. So I think it's important to also give something in return. Of course, it's not possible to do it all the time, but I try as much as possible to give something in return. So voila, that's, I don't know, that's about it. There's much more to say, but I think the captions say it also.
Nadia, of course, spricht Deutsch. Sie ist hier zur Schule gegangen.
Ich war hier für 7 Jahren, sehr, sehr lange her. Ich war in der Lycée Français in Wien. Mein Vater arbeitet hier. Und also ich spreche nicht sehr gut Deutsch. Ich habe viel vergessen, aber ich spreche gern Deutsch.
Und ich sagen wir jetzt gemeinsam, dass wir zur Wiesbier-Ausstellung gehen. Last but not least. Last, it's not about problems in the world. It's just about sheer beauty in the eye of a worldwide active artist placed here in Baden. You said Baden. And she said it's placed very, very well. Something like you had tears in your eyes because it was so beautiful. So it warmed my heart. So we have here Spears.
That's so cute. Thank you, thank you. This morning I came to look at the exhibition at the beginning of the day. The light was everywhere. Now there's not so much light, but the light was everywhere. And I almost fainted. It was so beautiful. I'm absolutely blown away. It's such an honor to be placed here in the most beautiful part of the town, I think. Just an amazing honor, and I'm just thrilled to be here. Thank you to the team that's organized this. It's been amazing. So, yes, not very much light left, but we're going to talk about the 3 different bodies of work. I work with film. Let's go back. I'm Australian, born Australian, and surrounded by nature from the very beginning. So I think that's why there's a lot of nature, and there always has been sort of weaved into my photography from the beginning, making connections to my roots. Now, I moved to Paris in 1990, so I have two nationalities. Bicultural. My family, my 3 daughters were born there. And I started taking photographs, art photography for myself. I was a film, cinema photographer. I was a stills photographer in Australia. And when I came here, it was difficult to get into the field, so I started taking photos for myself. And that's how I ended up doing the photographs of the children, and then adolescents, and then young people, and just eventually different series. And I wanted to talk about first this series that's behind us. This is called Transcendence, and it was perfectly really balanced for this this festival because the 3 it's inspired by the Renaissance, which valued beauty, balance, and harmony. And I think that's something that are codes that run throughout my work. And that's what we need, this planet to be beautiful, harmonious, and balanced. So these 2 figures behind you represent a sort of yin and yang. The male figure carrying the globe is carrying the weight of the problems, weight of the earth on his shoulders, symbolically. And the female figure is representing Gaia, so Mother Earth. And it's really a meditation on surpassing our limitations and distractions of the material world and kind of going beyond that to some kind of higher consciousness. So it's It is very poetic, but I think it fits perfectly in here, and I think it works really well with the thematic of the festival. So if we want to walk this way, we can look at some more work, and I can talk about the other series. Can we walk down this way? I'm attached. Oh, okay. Oh, so before I go, I'll tell you, I work with film. I've been working with film forever, and I just really can't let it go because of the painterly aspect. Everything I shoot is in camera. So this is all there. I set that up in the studio. I do use Photoshop to scan and to clean up my work, but everything is shot in camera, and that's a kind of ritual for me that I'm not prepared to let go of, even though digital is so easy, seems to be so easy. I use the tools of digital, the tools of Photoshop to combine with my analog base. But the film gives my work the aesthetic, which is very important. It gives it the grain and the depth that I'm looking for my particular work. So it works for me. It's not for everybody because it's a very laborious thing to work with. Film is complicated. You don't see the results straight away, and you have to wait for it to be developed and whatever. But I kind of stick at it in a kind of masochistic way. Like, everyone's like, why don't you go digital? Like, move over, Red Rover. And I'm like, yeah, but, I like to suffer. I like to, use big, clumsy cameras that break halfway through a shoot and big, I don't know. I just kind of, the whole thing is a challenge for me, and it keeps me on my toes. So, should we walk down this way or, yeah? Oh. Do I just... So we just follow me, following them, following each other. Here, I need to get rid of the water. Sorry. It should be wine. Isn't it wine time? Oh. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Soon we'll be having our glass of wine and forgetting the whole day. Oh.
No, not forgetting.
Remembering the whole day.
Celebrating.
Yeah. Absolutely. Forgetting the heat. Oh my God, the heat was something else, right? Yeah, I know, but I've been living in cold Paris for 34 years. So, I don't know why I'm on that. So I've been living in...
Because of entertainment.
No, because I thought they were with us, but they've left us, they've abandoned us. I've been living in Paris for so long, and I actually like I like warm weather, and I love the beach. Yeah. Still love the beach, but I kind of I do like in Paris when it gets hot, it's fucking awful. Yeah, it's too because everyone's built on top of each other. I
was on vacation the last 2.5 weeks on the Baltic Sea, my hometown Rostock.
Right.
And it was awesome, the weather.
Yeah.
24 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
The sea with 20 degrees.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. So, here we go. Maybe in the middle. So this is one of my sort of signature styles. The work behind From Transcendence was quite different color. I kind of swing between color and black and white. This was shot in black and white. And when I did the first series, which was a series called The Birthday Party, it was my first series, all in black and white, that I decided suddenly it shouldn't have been in black and white, it should be in color. So halfway through the series, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I've shot it in black and white. This is insane. I wanted it to be color. I wanted it to feel fresh and contemporary and not that kind of retro feel that it was giving me. So then I scanned it, put it into Photoshop, and then just put the colors on in layers, which gives, and they're very subtle, a bit like the old faded kind of postcards from another time. And this gave the images a very kind of between two worlds feel. So it kind of worked in my favor. The fact that I changed halfway through was something that looks so much better than it would have looked if I'd shot it in color, because it's something a bit special. And people are often quite surprised. They're like, "Oh, that's what it is." They never quite knew how I got those tones, because for me, the palette and the color is very, very important. Very small differences, but it has to be very accurate. So as you can see, I think this was chosen for the festival in La Gacilly because of all the elements of nature that, particularly in this series, which was called 13, which was my daughter. When she turned 13, I wanted to empower her with her kind of transition into becoming an adolescent, and the wings are symbolic and of moving forward and the transition, and something a bit dreamy and something a bit in between, also in between childhood and adulthood. So that was a simple short series, but they really, I think they, with the elements of nature, I had a lot of fun kind of how I integrated them into that series. This series over here came quite a bit later, and it's called Dystopia. So I tell stories through my work, this one being a world that had come unhinged because of war, because of famine. Does that ring a bell for anybody? I mean, it's kind of like the world we live in, really. And I wanted to once again empower the characters in my story. So they have, for example, the girl with the butterflies. She's bound up and she can't move, but she's like a chrysalis, like a butterfly that's rebirthing, transformation, rebirth. So that became a symbol. So no matter how bad it gets, there's always some way out. There's always some way to fight for freedom and liberation. So once again, in these photographs, I used elements from nature. The necklace here was skulls, seeds, bones that was formed for that necklace. And that was inspired by an Italian opera called The Thieving Magpies. And in Australia, we have birds that attack us in the nature, and that's a magpie. They're always trying to steal hair or something from us. And so they swoop down when you're walking along and it's springtime and you're having a lovely walk. You feel this whoosh, and it's those birds stealing things from you. So The Thieving Magpie, which was the opera, and then I used that as a symbol to recreate my own photograph, which the costumes I design myself. I don't make all of them. I just kind of take elements and I mix them and match them, and I don't like to stick to one period. Period in history. I like to just sort of take elements from everything and create something new and something unexpected. So, my work does have that kind of what we're talking about, that Renaissance code of beauty and to draw and harmony and balance, to draw in the viewer so that we say, oh, this is a beautiful photograph, but then I can tell my story so it can be edgy and it can be a little troubling, or it can be whatever I want it to be. Once I've attracted the audience into my work, then I can tell my story. And my story is whatever you want it to be. So you look into my work and you walk away with an emotion, something that maybe a memory, something nostalgic, or something that kind of, is something you've lived through and it speaks to you. And I want my work to be open-ended narrative, so that you can enjoy the work and interpret it for yourself in your own way. So we'll just go behind one last series, and then we'll be able to move on to the aperitif. No? Yeah. Dinner, aperitif, yes. Yes, so all my Grey Wall series, I started off with my daughter when she was 8 years old, photographing children, their last days of childhood, and it's called The Birthday Party. It's on my website. You can see the whole series. these crazy, I think they're kind of crazy photos of young children dressed in these. I just kind of redesigned their costumes. They weren't Batman and princesses. They were my idea of what their world would be like if it was just children, an anarchistic world belonging to. So, what was the question? That was right off the. I didn't even answer your question. Yeah, so that's part of that whole 10-year period where I shot black and white and then put the color. I sort of started with kids. And I did about 3 or 4 series, and they finished when they were in their early 20s. So I kind of followed the ages. And this work is also, I guess, I believe it was selected also for the nature. Yes, I do use dead animals in my work. So I'm not sure that's. Sorry. Oh well, no. Oh yeah. Okay. So I do use real dead animals because they have been they've died naturally. So I guess in Europe the law is you can't kill an animal and just unless it's a hunted animal for taxidermy. So I feel like I'm giving them a second life. So by kind of using them in my artwork, I'm giving them a second life. So that's sort of my I love them as well. I've always loved taxidermy. So these photographs are from a series called Phoenix, and it was really about empowering women and rising from the ashes, and women that had been through a lot and had come through, struggled, come back stronger and more beautiful than ever before. And that was basically, so the empowerment, once again, running through my work, I always empower the characters within my work. So, and that was shot not in black and white, obviously. I think it's quite obvious it was shot in color. But a similar, same idea as the transcendence. But I tone, I work really hard on I spend hours, like, I guess in a way, without realizing, like a painter, just staring at it a long time and thinking, is that the right color? Is that the right tone? Does that work? So I'll move in and out of what works and what I feel. I don't think what I should do, I just feel it. So that's my teacher. I don't think I should follow a crowd and do my photos like this. I feel I should do my photos like this. And that's that guides me. That guides me and never lets me down, actually. And voila. So I think, I think there's, unless there's any questions, are there any questions on any of the work, or my method, or my crazy love of taxidermy? Oh, okay, all right. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I feel honoured to have kind of closed the circuit as well tonight.
Thank you. Wonderful. And thank you for your kind words and these beautiful explanations. And you are all amazing. Not only you, we have now a solid 8 hours of photography. Walk in our legs. And and now we are going to sit down and have our fish. Thank you very, 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 very much. You are the best. Thank you.